It was,
Yes.
yes. It is on.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 5:01. Welcome, everyone. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Lee. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will entertain a motion regarding the approval of tonight's agenda.
I will second.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the mission statements. Trustee Bain, would you like to read the Board of Trustees mission statement?
The Lakeland Joint School Board of Trustees is an elected body of community members committed to serving with honesty and integrity, nurturing a relationship of trust. We hear the voice of our constituents and represent their view of our district. We provide oversight of taxpayer funds through fiscal accountability. We govern through developing, upholding, and advancing policy for the purpose of forging an academic consensus. We create and empower well-rounded citizens while respecting parental authority. We promote individualism, nurture talents, encourage passions, and provide opportunities within the Lakeland Joint School District community.
Thank you. Trustee Irons, would you read the district's mission statement?
Sure. Lakeland Joint School District's daily mission is to maximize student learning and ensure every student is growing academically, socially, emotionally, and behaviorally every day in all environments.
Thank you. Welcome to announcements. Again, I'd just like to remind the public that this is the board's business meeting. It is a meeting held in public. It is not a public board meeting. With patron input, it is not a dialogue with the board. However, the board may ask clarifying questions so that we're all clear with that. There is student success that we'll move into the Mountain View High School Passion Projects. Mr. Easy.
Oh, thank you for having time for my wonderful kiddos to come here.
Yes.
And I know you don't want to really listen to me. They're the important ones. But just in super general,
Do you need this?
I was looking lost where that was at. Is that going to control?
Yep.
Okay. Is there one open? Slideshow.
What are you looking for?
A PowerPoint? Maybe not.
Did you?
I sent one.
Who did you send it
Jennifer. Wrong
Janelle.
person.
You were
supposed to send it
Oh, I sent the wrong person.
Oh.
Well, it's fine. We don't
Sorry.
need it. In general, Connections is an excellent opportunity for students to chase those things that they love, they want to do. And I really try to push them from behind into those uncomfortable situations that promote learning, promote those obstacles to overcome, and where real growth occurs. And so we have a whole bunch of kiddos who are doing great things, and I have 3 here today who have so graciously decided to tackle this challenge and to come up here and share their passion projects with you. And so we're going to start with Ms. Takaya.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Takaya Knudsen. My project was to help the school, Mountain View, the students who are struggling to have food at their house and their families. So just before Thanksgiving, I with the help of the YAP program, I formed an idea to where I would supply students with enough food to get them over the long breaks. So we had, I think, 8 students get enough food for the entire break, and the Rathrum Food Bank helped supply that with under 2 days. They got all the food ready for us. And then the next thing, Super One donated us food. There's, I think, the bus barn, and then
Transportation.
yeah, the transportation. There's a community
Mason's group.
Yeah, the Masons group. And then I think there was one more, I don't remember the name. They're all helping to bring food to us, so then we have enough. And then also for our food pantry that I also came up with. So then we have food for anyone in school who's hungry at the time and doesn't have money to like go, or like school food is like boring. And then with all the people who have donated and asked to help, they all found me through the newspaper, which was, it got printed the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So with all that, like, it's been so exciting, like getting all these people like would love to help in everything. So that was mine. Do you guys have any questions?
Do you plan to continue to do this? Oh, excellent.
Yeah, for Christmas break, I'm doing it.
Okay,
And then spring break,
great.
yeah.
That's exciting.
And then I'll be on leave next year, so I'll be doing it then, and hopefully for that.
Very good.
Well done.
Great project.
So, yeah.
Do you guys have a freezer over here? Do you store frozen like perishable things?
No, nothing perishable, because we don't know if students have anything that they can store it in, or how long it takes them to get home. So we don't want anything to spoil or like go bad. So like we have things that are like noodles and like canned foods, or like food stuff like that.
Awesome.
Anything else?
Yeah, I actually have a question. How, if someone wanted to participate, how would they get a hold of you?
They would contact Yuzi, I'm not here. And then with, or either Yuzi or Kelly Aiken, the counselor.
Great.
Awesome, well done.
Doesn't it sound like she has a future in some service industry? I mean, you're like kind of paving your way for the future.
Yeah.
That it's really good
Awesome.
skills, yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, she's definitely created a program that's gonna be long lasting.
Great.
That's a neat
Very
legacy.
good.
That's
Yeah.
a neat legacy of it. to leave.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. I know that's a hard thing to do, and you did it with shining colors. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then our next group, our Moose TV group, which you can see a little picture here, but we have Thomas Winters and Jeff
Let's see if you can say it right, just once.
Hare.
There you go.
There we go. I always mess that up. Come on up, gentlemen. And well, I'll let Thomas take the reins on this one.
Hello, I'm Thomas. I'm Jeff. And we are Moose TV. So what Moose TV has done for us has been a lot. We are the crew for our school to do news for everybody. So what Moose TV has done for me is, last year I was at Lakeland High School and I felt useless. I was never given opportunities to help the school. I was just another sheep following the herd, unable to do anything useful. But when I transferred over to Mountain View, I was immediately given an opportunity to record my very first and very primitive Moose TV. I was a recorder, script writer, editor, and co-host. And now I feel useful. The next year, I was the only remaining member on that team. So that meant I could do what other school newses couldn't do. But I couldn't have made it the way it was today without the friends that brought.
Thank you. All right, stick with memory card. All right, so what it did for me is made me more comfortable with myself and being able to speak on camera without being as nervous. I actually started Moose TV last year with a couple people and loved it. And now we uncover all the mysterious Mountain View questions and mysteries. And not just Mountain View, just a whole bunch of things, like we actually found a missing picture in the 1960s, and we actually got to go to their house and talk to them and everything and interview them. So it's pretty interesting.
So what Moose TV means to me is an outlet for my creativity. I can do what I want and no one can stop me other than him and Mr. Yuzi. Also, we were supposed to have another person with us today, but unfortunately he was unable to make it. So I'm going to read off what he was saying. What Moose TV has done for me is that it has helped me to get over my social anxiety and speak outwardly how I feel. what Moose TV means to me is it is a time to hang out with the people who share similar interests as me and work as a team to a common goal and have fun along the way.
All right. So one last announcement. You have horrible handwriting. We actually have a YouTube channel, so you want to read it?
Sure, I'll read it. So we have a YouTube channel, so if you want to watch all of our previous episodes, type Mountain View Mystery in the YouTube search it.
You can't even read your own handwriting.
All right, well, thank you for your time. And also, right here is a card to our channel link.
See if they have any questions for you before
Oh,
you.
do you have any questions?
No, but I'm very, very, very happy you found your place.
Yeah,
That
thanks.
makes me happy.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a question. Where do you get your inspiration for the segments that you do?
So like the Mountain View Mystery segment, one of my teachers, Mr. Benson, one day he just pointed out this picture on the wall and it had two pictures that were covered up on the picture and we're like, well, I wonder what that's about. So we started a whole like episode about it and we're like, okay, we're gonna try to figure out this mystery. And then it evolved into this sort of like, we're having fun with it. Like we even had Mr. Uzi come into it. Like he's like, you can't do this, stop. And so eventually we went to here where we didn't find anything. And then we went to City Hall and that we found everything. And that day, we actually went to the person, like two people's houses who graduated in that picture.
Wow.
And who are married to each other. Who are Norman and Sherry, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, Norman and Sherry, who are married. And they just gave us everything that we needed. And the newest thing we're doing now is an old thing with our school but we're just going like, see this, put this into here.
It's a fun journey.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
building right next to our school and it's not there anymore. It's a house. So.
No, it's the food service.
Wasn't it 2 stories though?
Yeah,
Food
food
storage
service
was
was destroyed off top.
That's
So yeah, that's the type of stuff we're covering. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Good job.
Yes.
They provide pretty deep into the history of Rathbone and what's going on in our community in the Mountain View property, and it's a lot of pretty cool information. Last but not least, Mr. Dhs Estrada. He has just a picture.
Whole presentation. This was the reason it was going to be shared. While he's doing that, most Mountain View students, most of us Mountain View students have decided to start a greenhouse. Now, this pet project of ours could potentially be a fundraiser for amongst the school, a growth outlet, or even just something to help the students. It's a way of helping them to grow while they're growing something else. I am the only one who could make it of the Mountain View Greenhouse team. Names include Samantha Barber, Brandt, Rick Hansen, Little. There's 7 of us. It's quite a few. We feel as though we could provide a fundamental service to our community as a whole. We just wanted to help those who couldn't find a way to do it themselves. If you pay attention here. Names as previously mentioned. So we just wanted to make a service. We feel as though we could be better than we're seen as Mountain View students, as the alternative kids. along with this was some of the things I was already mentioning, helping with communal needs or giving them better food choices, better options that they themselves put the effort and investment into. Going along to the next point, it would be best to keep this nearby. So right behind the school, there's so much room that is yet to be capitalized on. And with said proximity to our school, opens up a lot of room for training and long-term investment. This could be standing 10 years, 20 years from now, a legacy, to quote one of my favorite teachers. The end goal is a self-sufficient, completely done from ground up greenhouse. Everything from shelving for storage to flower pots for bouquets as part of that fundraiser, an outdoor grow bed for training, or double layers of indoor grow beds. This plan, this pet project could change quite a few of Mountain View students' outlooks. Now, beforehand, is there any questions?
Would you consider a component so that it could be maintained throughout the summer?
Hence the indoor part. So if you pay no mind to the poorly done 3D model, this door is going to be closed. There will be heating internally. The outdoor grow bed is specifically for training. So for the next group, training the next group, and so on and so forth. We plan to keep everything self-contained to the point that there's no need for professional assistance. While donations and contributions would be greatly appreciated, we plan on doing it ourselves. That's end goal, what we want.
When are you, when do you want to get the greenhouse erected as a timeline?
Timeline, as soon as the snow goes away, we'll get that up and ready. We have most of the plan put together and a shopping list pretty well stocked.
And have you thought of any volunteers from the community to help? Have you thought of involving or inviting the community if they were interested in coming and lending a hand and, you know, being part of this project that could potentially, like you said, be a legacy?
I do feel as though we could open things up. This concept was thrown together by 7 of us, but it extends well beyond that. So very well and truly, it could be opened up to community or volunteers.
I mean, even just to help get, because this is a big undertaking, if you do it right,
Absolutely.
then just getting the initial structure and, you know, it takes a lot of manpower.
Do you have somebody that has construction experience, Trustee Irons?
I know people. This is a great idea.
It really is. What was your inspiration for it?
The idea behind it was events, honestly. It was to teach high school students to grow without focusing on their own growth. So they could put all of that effort or energy into a couple of plants that may live, may die with no impact. Or to the reverse effects, a lot of impact. It just depends on where the energy goes.
Neat idea.
Do you have a list of vendors in the area to supply the majority of what you think you need?
We've mostly done all of the procurement on our own so far, which is why that opening up to volunteers or contributions would be impactful.
Are you open to expert input
Yes, of course.
on where to start and where to go and who to deal with and all those types of things?
Input's always appreciated.
And then if somebody wants to help, who do they get a hold of?
They could very well get a hold of our counselor, Aiken or Yuzi. there are many of us who are capable. I do feel though the best options would be the higher of the ladder.
And do you have, like, are you guys meeting during school or after school? Like, when is your next meeting if somebody might want to attend?
So far, we've been meeting during connections class, which is why it's had such an impact. The reason I'm the only one to show up is because I'm the only one in town. So we can't exactly have team meetings after school.
Yeah. So probably like after the holidays and all that, you guys will pick back up. That's awesome. Speaking that language.
She's an expert in that area. Do you have have you guys put together a budget, proposed budget?
Proposed budget?
The dollar amount, I think we're aiming
So
for.
what would be helpful, I think, for everyone, myself included, but the facilities director, has he gone over yet? Have you met him yet? He's actually in the audience, Mr. Ferriola. So he would go over and look, but there's some steps you can get into place that you yourself could take care of before you even get to that construction phase. But helpful to us would be a budget, like we think this is gonna be this, and that. Will take some research on your part, but that would help us in planning what can come from the district level, what do we need to do for donations, what in kind if people can give their services. Getting an article, we have somebody that can help. It helped immensely. You heard her say when she was on the paper, we have somebody that could help write an article and get that in the paper so that you could get some people helping you. So if you could start with that little bit of a budget, and then we could maybe set up a couple of meetings to get, before you can get, till we get that going to help you, to get it kind of started off the ground would be helpful.
Just know that there's a lot of people out there that would be willing to help with
Yes.
this project.
Yes.
So you guys don't have to undertake it all.
Yeah, that's exactly.
As rewarding as it would be to do it all on your own, there's a lot of people that would be willing, and that can be just as rewarding. So keep that in mind.
I appreciate that. That's it for me.
Excellent.
done.
Thank you.
The last little tidbit for me, I'll just, I have one of those slides here, I think, maybe not. But Connections is there, you can see it's providing opportunities for kiddos to shine, for kiddos to have that taste of success. And then we're watching them just take off like a rocket in other aspects of their education. So, I mean, to end up in the paper has been amazing for so many of our kiddos. And I think we've been in the paper 4 times since the beginning of the year, so we're shooting for at least 10 more times.
You're doubling your goal of what you wrote in the beginning
Yeah, I
of the
was
year
shooting for
already.
2, we've buried 4, so we're going
Yeah.
for more.
Heck
So
yeah.
that our kiddos are shining this year.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they're doing. And I'm having to step back out of the way and just let them do their thing. And
That's so great. Cool.
the success is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. Any questions?
Yes, so connections, if I recall from previous presentations, is when the kids meet in the morning, correct? And so when they've met in the morning, there's just been this stirring to develop a targeted passion or something that they want to pursue for the greater good of themselves or the community or whatever. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so it feels busy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that, I mean, being old and crusty myself, I'm having to get used to. But it's busy, they're active, they are chasing their passions, and it's so neat to see them dreaming about the possibilities that are beyond their fingertips, but they're chasing them, and they're looking for the resources to make it happen. It's
great.
I get goosebumps.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's very exciting.
It is.
Oh, and kudos to you. I've said this before, but kudos to him, what Paul has done with the group of kiddos, and in the last 6 years, the growth that school has made under your leadership. I constantly am in awe of how much you've done.
I couldn't do anything without an amazing staff and amazing support and
Amazing students.
amazing students. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You guys are welcome to go do your homework before tomorrow.
That's a great thing.
You said
We don't get that.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, I get it. I just didn't want to- if it was-
No public input. All right, so no public input. We'll be moving on to the report and presentation agenda. First subcommittee report is the math curricular advisory committee.
Last time we followed a student that was amazing. Amazing students. So
It's a good
here's.
trend to have.
Yes, it is.
I
It's
know.
awesome.
I kind of feel like, well, got a little teary eyed. That was amazing. So here's our monthly update. This by far was probably my most favorite meeting we've had so far, just because it's really interactive. We had a lot of parents, so parents that reached out that wanted from the committee as a subcommittee Google form that we submitted. There were 5 of them that I made contact with. They all came super, they were, I intermixed them with the teachers and just made it really interactive. And so there was a lot of just information sharing back and forth. And so I felt like it was less presentation and just more everybody just digging in and figuring it out. So we did have the last 2 presentations for IM and mid-school math. They did a great job of just, kind of highlighting the key points, walking through that. And then we really spent a lot of time here. We opened it here, so we have it here. And just for you guys, as you start looking through this, if you want to, here is Achieve the Core. And they have spent a lot of money and a lot of time. This was part of Race to the Top States when this first came out, of just highlighting what really like focus work is at every single grade level, looking at the vertical alignment. So here's a really quick snapshot. You can pull up any grade. So we'll kind of walk you through if it works. It worked earlier. Let's try again. I promise I tried this before. Yep, we had it open. Let's try 3rd grade one time. Let's read right now. Okay. So it kind of just gives you like, here's the major supporting clusters, here's minor supporting clusters and just additional clusters. So here are all the areas that for that grade level specifically that are key areas. And then it will kind of tell you some of that vertical alignment. This is what's important at the grades above, the grades below, then required fluency practices. So you can kind of get a snapshot of each grade just instead of going through all of the standards. So this was super helpful, I think, for the parents and we really had, if you were 3rd grade teachers, 2nd grade teachers look at the 3rd grade materials and then 4th grade teachers look. This is really important to this piece. It really lines out that vertical alignment. It's a great graphic. So as you guys are looking through that math adoption, I just wanted to highlight that for you. We have this and it's for every single grade, so you can look through that. And that's what our parents, we spent a lot of time just looking through this piece. And then we put it together with our 8 mathematical practices.
Yeah, so the standards tell us what we're teaching our kids as far as what they should be able to mathematically do. But the standards for mathematical practice tell us how they should be doing those things. And one of the struggles that we had with our old math adoption was the standards were kind of identified within the textbook, but the mathematical practices were not embedded. And when our kids are asked to do math, they're asked to do math with following these mathematical practices. So these are part of our standards. And as we look at a new textbook moving forward, we are looking to make sure that the mathematical practices are embedded as they are as important as the standards are. So can they model with math? Can they construct arguments and critique the reasoning of others? So this is not about doing the math, it's about how they do the math. So a very important part of math instruction. Do they attend to precision? Math is an accurate science. There is only ever, there's one right answer. There are lots of ways to get to the right answer, but there's one right answer and we need that precision. Can they look for and make use of structure? And then patterns. Parents have an opportunity to see both of these documents so that we can have some conversation about how they're different and why they both exist. Because this supports
the outcomes of the instruction.
These will be weighted heavier in the sense of when we start looking at our quantitative data. Do these align, whatever programs we're looking at, are they aligning with these mathematical practices? Do you see them embedded in there? Are the major focus clusters in the math program aligned with Achievement Core and what, across the nation that they've said are the major math focus for K through 8 math? So the next slide we put for you is just, here is all of the data resources. So here's the parent reflection, elementary, middle school, though that is the rubric that we were using. So we spent the last 20 minutes of the math meeting just kind of going through the rubric, letting them just kind of touch it, feel it, see it, have conversation about it. I was walking around just as they had questions. Lots of parents were with, paired with a teacher, and they would just have questions amongst themselves. So it was just a chance for us to really kind of dig into it. I gave them a lot of resources that gives additional information about the rubric, and then we'll have diagnostic results as well. So I just wanted you to kind of see the compilation of everything that we'll be looking at. And then the next meeting will be next Thursday. And then we'll just dive into the rubric, and we're going to just kind of do a 20 to 30 minutes of just getting into the rubric, letting them ask questions, look at it, and then start having conversation about the rollout. So here's all the links again. I wanted you guys to be able to have access to those.
Have you had a chance, any of you, to go into those and just take a look?
Well, maybe I did earlier. I'm trying to think of the words, but I might have.
It would be helpful to us if, prior to us bringing a recommendation to you guys, if you could take some time and go in and look at those and then give us some feedback that we can take back to the committee as you're looking at it.
Yeah, I did go through.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
Oh,
we
no,
are
no.
interested in what you think about what we're presenting to you.
Well, I actually was curious, because I think on the review criteria for the mathematics K through 8 program, what I reviewed today on the attachment was a 2013 document. But then when I went to the actual edreports.org site, I saw that there was a whole bunch of, more current. And so I don't know if what got uploaded was just the wrong document or whatnot, but I would hope that we're utilizing current instead of something so dated, because I know everything changes and evolves.
Are you talking about the rubric or just the information?
It was on the edreports. It was either it was the review criteria, I believe. Oh, no, it was the quality. It must be this one. There was a lot in this. Yep, it was the quality instructional materials tool for K through 8 mathematics.
So
when
the rubric is the most updated one. I just tried to give them, if there was something that gave a little bit more information, because I haven't changed it that much.
Okay.
Based on what the edreports review has been, so that it was a little bit more detailed, a little bit more information, but kind of our process, we're going to do a paper, we're going to go old school, just because there's so much meat to that rubric. And so we're going to just have them, like, we'll have copies for them, and they'll get to actually fill it out and go through it. And it will be the latest, the updated one. So I just wanted them to have multiple resources, that they weren't just looking at one doc, if they wanted additional information.
Okay. And there wasn't any, and maybe it's not time yet, but there wasn't any parent feedback, but there were educator feedback. There was educator feedback.
I have just continued to encourage parents. I've sent them some emails, and I think, they're struggling a little bit with what feedback do they provide. And I just said, anything that you can give us from a parent perspective is super helpful. So we just encourage and recommend. And
no, I think it's great.
so again, these are our pilot programs. And then this is our next meeting. So our running agenda, so you can kind of see those pieces, and then our timeline again. So we'll meet next Thursday. Questions for us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
We're having fun.
I mean, I think it's fun, but.
Okay, next up is the financial presentation. Save the loss.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Meyer, it's the monthly finance report. We'll try to go through it fairly quickly. This month we do, on the revenue side, see that we did get a state payment of almost $5.1 million. So we get a November payment and then a February payment, and then they sort of true up. There's a May payment and at the very end in July, or actually for June, they sort of do all the accounting and true up with what you actually earned from what you had budgeted. So on the revenue side, we're tracking fine. On the expenditure side, you can see our total expenditures for the month in general fund of $3.1 million. If we were tracking perfectly to budget at that 36.9, we would be at $3,075,000, so it's a little bit high. And some of that's to be expected with some of the ads we did from with the growth and doing that ads that we're probably going to be running a little every month, just a little bit higher than that amount, and be near our budget or above. With that said, I'm not too concerned about that because we do have the ESSER funds. We're going to utilize those to mitigate some of those impacts and charge for some of those things. So I think we'll be good at shape on the expenditure side. For long term for the budget on how we're going to end up the year, the bigger concern is really the revenue side. For reasons that we discussed before, one, with attendance reporting and that being lower, we could not hit our own unit target. The other impact is that all the districts, by Idaho code, we participate in a program called protection. And that means if the district really got hit by a drop in attendance, that on their salary-based apportionment, they only will take a 3% drop in the number of staff of fund. So let's say they're down 15% in attendance, something happened. Well, and if they got $100 last year, let's say that drop in attendance would result in $85. The state says, we'll pay you $97. So even though they didn't earn that, that's like a floor for that 1 year. And then what happens is every other district pays in to make up that difference. It's called protection. So when the law changed, well, the reason they did that is when the legislature used to have protection, and that was just covered by the state. The state wanted to take protection away, and so when they changed the law, they said, we have protection, but it's like an insurance program, and all the districts participate. Traditionally, we do pay protection a little bit every year, but it's a really small amount. I mean, in the big picture, it's not bad. This year, though, you could have the majority of districts being in protection. So even though let's say our attendance is well and we're doing better from just we sort of got back to normal quicker than some other districts, we would be paying for like West Ada's lower attendance. So that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
On December 15th, the state board is actually going to, on their agenda, is whether they will put another temporary order in for this year to do enrollment reporting again, as opposed to ADA.
And they assured us this morning that they will.
Okay, it sounds good. So with that, hopefully, if that moves forward, then I think that takes an unknown out of the equation, which is going to be super helpful. We had a meeting with the State Department of Finance Director Julie Overly, and she said that if attendance stayed throughout the year, that you could expect maybe a 5% hit to your state apportionment. I mean, for us, that's over millions of dollars. If it goes to enrollment like last year, then it will be more like just a normal year, and so we begin our units, and that would be a big help. The other impact, of course, is that's outside of that is the Public Education Stabilization Fund, which will not be used this year to cover any growth or some costs that weren't expected in budget. That's how the state sort of backfilled if there was more units asked for, or transportation dollars or other things like that. That definitely is going to I mean, that is what it is this year, and that could be up to $5,000 to $7,000, but if we got our full apportionment with ESSER, I think we'll be okay. So those are just, I guess that's a long way to say, I think we're tracking good, but we're more concerned with some of the things factors that we can't control as opposed to things that we can control. And again, if you look at our expenditures, from previous years are run a little higher, and that's again reflecting to that 3.1 being a little higher than that 12-month average. And just the graph goes by functioning to the reds moving along the line, and that each month our green should stay pretty similar as far as that 3.1 from now, since it's mostly salaries. By object, of course, I like this just to show that, if you look at the blue, that 24 million and the 8 million, that, really to put our money and resources into our people and staff to run the program for the kids. The enrollment numbers, for enrollment, again, we're maintaining our numbers. We're, at very start of September, around that 4,700, a little more. We're at 4,703, a few more than the previous month. And this actually is pretty encouraging for our ADA, that for the snapshot in time for this month, that we were at 95% overall in the district. We have some pockets with some, at 90%, like for Spirit Lake is sort of low, but overall at 95%, that's really sort of traditional, which is great. The more we get back to normal, I think that is very positive. And that's all I have on the enrollment report. In the packet, of course, are the additional ASB accounts that are in the PDF. I didn't put those up as part of the slide. And if there are any questions.
So the attendance was just for December 1st, correct? And
Correct.
4,400, not 47. Good. We have 4,700 enrolled, but only 4,400 attended.
Yeah, that 4487. Yeah, so 200 for that particular one, that one
That
day.
Correct.
Yeah, and that you could that 95%. I mean, across the state with in pre-COVID years, that was sort of a 95% is almost a statewide average. Lakeland, sometimes we were at 96, 97, which was higher. Coeur d'Alene was like at 93. I'm not sure Post Falls. It's just sort of funny. Every community, I'm sure, is a little different, but when you took the state, but to be at 95 really shows, I think, that our community, that we're getting a little bit back, to normal, and hopefully, the kids aren't getting sick and staff aren't sick, and we're sort of moving on.
And then on the at the bottom of the very first page, on the fund balance, the excess of revenues transfers in, or over bracketed under expenditures transfers out, the 6,809,794. Is that an excess in revenues?
That is saying, at this moment in time, if we compare July, through November,
Right.
how many dollars have we been brought in and how many we spent? We're $6.8 million more to the good, in the black, than we spent. And the reason for that is that in August, we get that large payment from the state. They front fund us, so they give us 60% of our dollars in the first couple of months of the year. That's why. And then we also just collected property taxes. Actually, that hasn't been, that won't show yet. Sorry. So if you look at the state funding, we budgeted 26 million. They've already given us 17 point, almost 18 of that 26. That's why we're in the black, because they give us money up front. So what happens is, as we move through this year, that amount is going to lessen as we start getting less state, we don't get state revenues, and our costs every month are still about 3.1 million.
Okay,
So it just means that we got a bunch of money up front. It's sort of, let's say you had a job
right.
and you got paid twice a year.
Mhm.
So the first month when you got paid, you're looking good, but now you have 6 months of expenses before.
No, I understand that. I
Okay.
just know when we went through the audit, the fund balance was actually significantly higher than we actually reported.
And that is-
We're reporting in the general fund. And so I just was curious if this was inclusion of where we actually are with the general, or where we actually are with our,
All funds.
yes.
No, this
Okay.
is just relative to the general fund. So, and this shows, so here was what we budgeted. This number, I said for budget, that we would start the year in July with 5.6 million.
Right.
That was budget. This is the actual, where we actually had the 6.9, that increase in fund balance.
Right, and it's just the general fund, it's not the overall.
Correct.
All fund.
Right, and so right now, if you look just at our ending balance for the general fund, just for this month snapshot in time, you know, cash flow wise, we're doing good. This gets very low in July though, because it's, you know, cash flow isn't a constant. So, you know, we get down to a few $1 million in July, when our state payments are over and we haven't collected property taxes yet.
So that was my only question.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation. Then we have the capital projects list.
Oh. Mr. Fairfield. So I'm here with Mr. Ferriola, our maintenance director. And, you know, knowing some questions that the board had, you know, where we're going with some capital projects, and really I tied this into where we are with our plant facility fund, where most of our capital projects have been done from. So I just started real quick, and then we can, there's not a whole lot to the slide, it's only one slide presentation, so you can have questions and we'll go from there. So in November, you know, we have a cash balance of the $600,000, and then we haven't collected any property taxes yet, but as we collect through this year, we should collect our levies. So, you know, effectively, we have $1,760,000 of available funds for projects. And, you know, we have a couple open purchase orders at the time when I ran the report of things that have been, you know, closed out, and that reserved for land purchases are really, we've had 2 sales of land, one in Spirit Lake and one out in Hauser. And we're sort of holding that in, I call it an expenditure, we're holding it in reserve. I mean, the board, if they wanted to spend that on projects, we could. But right now I'm just, you know, sale of land for, you know, if we wanted to build up a fund for future land purchases, that's what the land sales are for. But the board, it's a board decision if you want to use those dollars for a project. But right now, I'm just, so we don't spend it, I put it up there like it was something to spend. These are the projects that Mr. Ferland and I have looked on, you know, through this next, let's say, at this point, you know, 12 to 18 months from this point of projects we'd like to do. A lot would happen this summer, but not all. Some's going on now. Projects that we're sort of have on the radar. Definitely there's more needs out there, but these are things that, as we look at projects and what we've been trying to do the past few years is, you know, there's a lot to facility maintenance. So we're trying to, the roofs were a big deal because you can't, active leaks cause problems everywhere for building integrity and for a variety of reasons. So we really wanted to button those up. But we've been trying to hit some carpeting, flooring every year, parking lots every year, some HVAC here, hit all so that we don't fall behind too far in any area. We are sort of playing catch up in a lot of areas. So this is sort of reflecting that we're trying to hit multiple areas. And anyway, do you have anything to add?
No, it's important, but what we have to get out from underneath, for me, so in the 5 years I've been doing this, it's revolved around, Mr. Irons knows, some of it is roofing. And we need to get that off of our plate and get those up to speed, because that's where, like, on this list here, a majority, if not a lot of the money is going to. You know, we get Betty Keefer under wraps and a section at Lakeland High School, and then finish John Brown. Now I've got some breathing room, so all the expenditures of roofing now can be applied to other aspects. But like Ryan was saying, we're trying to hit, we have a lot of needs, let's just put it that way. We're trying to hit a little bit everywhere, but we've got to get out from the roofing, in my opinion, in order to free up an abundance of money. And I think if we can get through these next few roofs, we'll have some breathing room where we can apply that to other areas of the buildings. But we are hitting lots of stuff. I mean, in the 5 years, we've gained a lot of ground, I feel.
And I do want to mention that I have shared it with the board, but Mr. Ferriola, the facilities director, he did do a rotation, which I've shared. So it's not just hit and miss deciding. They did like, okay, this is a 10-year project for this, the carpets and the reflooring. Here's a 10-year project for the exterior and interior. Here's a 10-year project for roofing, 50-year project for roofing. So he does have it mapped out in a spreadsheet that I have shared with you. I just want the public to know that if they're listening outside, they might not know, but you do have it all mapped out for.
I do, and I mean, and it's a little frustrating. We've got, when it's said and done, I mean, we'd have to look at what we've spent, but I'd wager to say, when we get done with the roofing that we're proposing here, on top of what we've already spent, I mean, we're probably looking somewhere in the $3 to $4 million range, right? That's a lot of money of things that we're behind on. We've got to get past that so that we can go deeper into some other areas. But that being said, we are hitting lots of things along the way. So it's a pretty big mountain, if I'm being honest. And I mean, we're making good headway in the 5 years, I believe. I mean, but that's it. Like I said, the roofing thing for me has been my whole focus. Unfortunately, it's all I've really been dealing with for the most part, and I just want to get out from that so I can focus on other stuff and put that
Be done.
right. I mean, I will say that a lot of the stuff like the John Brown, I'm very big on preventative, which is a new theory, right? You know, that which is bizarre to me. But anyway, like the John Brown project, that at this point is preventative. But I still want to get it done. I'm trying to get ahead of situations like we had at Timberlake in 2016 or 17. I had chunks of roofing coming in classrooms. That's the name of the game. That's the safety part of it. We've got to get those buttoned up so we don't have that dealt with, you know, safety part of it, and then we can move farther into the buildings. But that's about all I've got.
So those are everything that you would expect to have wrapped up this coming year, next year? I mean,
Yeah.
This is in this current budget.
Yeah, this would get, or some might cross over into the next fiscal year just with the timing of the summer.
Some of these are underway already.
But like the roof replacements, you know, are actually up for action for you to approve those, at least for 2 of the Betty Keefer and Lakeland High School. We haven't got a formal quote on John Brown yet. You know, but the parking lot seal stripe, again, that would be done in the summer. Carpet replacement would be the summer. We would start working, the keyless entry is sort of the safety thing. You know, of course, some of these, if, you know, there could be a discussion saying that we think this is a higher priority and we could defer something for something else, an opportunity cost. But, you know, the keyless entry really, on a lot of levels is a security and safety feature where you can, we can then start pulling some of, you know, there's a lot of keys out there in the community. There are master keys and stuff like that, and plus just our our key cores are running out of combinations. And to completely rekey the district that's hugely expensive. So it's a way we could pull out some keys, get better combinations. And also like with the portable at Timberlake, you know, you want to have that so that the exterior's locked, but you know, they can go in and out. And so that project really is trying to get at a minimum, at least north, south, east, west in each building where they have access on the key. Now, some buildings that are bigger, like, you know, the high schools, there's going to be more access just because they have more doors. But that would be something that would be we continue to work because to save costs, we're doing that, a lot of that work in-house with a staff member named Paul Galen. But you know, since it's our labor, it saves us on the back end. Like the ADA door replacement for Lakeland High School, that was a have to do, but we haven't paid for it yet, so I put it there, but that is, we've been ordering the parts. Some of the things like the main gym HVAC replacement at Timberlake High School, I mean, it's working now. We're just afraid that if it, right now, and Mr. Farrell will probably explain it better than me, but the building is at such that if it, and the best way it can go is either it's heating or it's cooling.
Right.
If right now, but if we want to have it where it can do both, the whole thing is, it's just, I don't know the best way is.
It's at the end of its life.
Yeah.
It's a problematic unit, which is not uncommon, you know, at a lot of our schools. We are running a lot of original equipment still. And our preventative maintenance program has really helped keep those going. But that being said, in an area like that, gym, for instance, as we all know, I mean, that's a major impact on sporting events and, you know, graduation, things like that. So for me, that's a priority. Anyway, without getting into the weeds too much on that. So I'm getting bids on that right now. They're sizable units. They're very massive. So anyway, that's a work in progress, but a lot of that stuff on there is actually started, you know, like the restroom project at Mountain View, we started that already. LED upgrade to the gym lights at Timberlake Middle School, we've started that already. So some of those things on there are things we can do throughout the year. But a lot of it is stuff that we have to go full bore on in the summertime just based on the impact.
Right,
So,
and really the big ticket items, you can see the HVAC, the 8,590 there at the bottom, and the roofs, those have not been started, or the carpet replacement, or really the expanded. So really the big ticket items we haven't started. So if the board, you know, had questions or heartburn, saying, well, is this a higher priority than this? And we can discuss, we certainly can, because we haven't moved forward on those big ticket items. And we'll bring those to you as we, like if we got a firm price. So for example, the elementary gym heaters and controls at Alpha and Spirit Lake, those are the original units in those gyms, and they're a standalone. And they're, you know, roughly $40,000 a piece. We haven't got a formal quote yet on that. We just sort of know. But we bring that stuff to your attention if we were going to move forward.
I do have a few questions. I recall last year that you brought to us for approval the 2 roof sections on John Brown Elementary. But on this report, you have John Brown Elementary final 2 sections. So does that mean that we haven't paid for the roof work and that's why it's here? Or
no,
It's
this
the
is
2 next
this is
sections.
additional sections.
We were doing it in sections.
So last year when we did John Brown, we how many sections?
Remember that,
we were doing 2 sections at a time.
Right.
Essentially, and on
And
this,
I gave you a picture of the roof view,
Yeah.
and there are 6
yeah,
sections.
no, I know. I'm just trying to correlate it all because when I pull up the facilities upgrade and replacement schedule, it's not on there. So I'm just trying to understand
So
on the
on
spreadsheet.
this document right here, you mean,
No.
or on?
Yeah, I've pulled up the facilities upgrade and replacement schedule that was shared with us. And it's not on there. And then when I click over to Betty Keefer, I show in 2018 that the original roof is still in service, but there's no marker on here saying that on this, in this year, we're actually gonna be replacing it. So I'm just trying to figure out how it all ties in together, so that I have just a better understanding of what you're bringing into.
Right, is that the matrix that
Yeah,
I updated? Is that the document you're talking
Yeah.
about? I'd have to look at it again. I don't remember
Okay.
what specifically I had for like years of replacement on there. A lot of that is subject to
Some of
change.
the
Oh, I
You
don't
know,
think
right,
so.
so, but I can't
I think
recall
she's
what-
just saying, we need to take what's on here and put it on the matrix and update the matrix is all we need to do. is what
Gotcha,
she's saying.
yeah.
Just so that, you know,
Yeah.
I's are dotted, T's are crossed.
Sure.
Because when I'm looking at the documents, I'm like, I don't think we need a roof, it's not here.
I
Yours,
gotcha,
So,
yeah.
that's all.
Yep.
Okay. But no, preventative is definitely the way to go.
It really is.
So this tells us what you want to do this year, and the matrix is kind of your plan for replacement of carpets and roofs and.
Right, and-
Access,
I'm sorry.
please don't hear me. I understand that things are going to change, but have we done any inspections, like professional inspections of the buildings to see what absolutely needs to be done? Because I know those bleachers at Timberlake High School are dangerous. People have fallen from them, they've been hurt. I don't see that anywhere on any of this being touched, and so I just was kind of curious, like, what are those, like, what is that? Where are those coming down the line?
You mean like a building audit by a professional company coming in, looking at like the entire building?
Yeah, we're actually, it's board policy that be done annually at
Yeah.
all of the buildings, and I just was curious, like, when that has been done.
From a professional standpoint, I mean, other than the condition evaluations that you and I
Right,
came
we-
up with, I haven't,
we-
since I've been doing this, I haven't had a company come in and do like an audit of each building.
We've done a building condition evaluation, each year. This year, we haven't done it yet, but it's on our radar. The board had asked for us to bring in, an outside group, and I reached out to Architects West, who they do building evaluations for not just Idaho districts, but but they do a lot in Washington too, because there's a formal process there with their school construction assistance program. And so they, said whatever assistance we needed, and so we've been working with them to just schedule time to go out and do it, but it is in the works.
Cool. Thank you, thank you.
Do you think that any of the HVAC needs that are presented on this, there might be more, do you think any of that might be covered in any COVID money? Because of the ventilation stipulation. that they
We
have?
certainly could put to use the COVID dollars for these, we can, we need to put the project down and get approval from the state. And then we'd also end up probably paying about another 35–40% because of prevailing wage and those federal requirements for the vendors. So that's something that we can certainly, look at if we want to use the COVID dollars for more facility things as opposed for the program. I mean, that's.
Well, I just
how
know
we
that
wanna-
in the one, I'm just asking because I remember in the one, it specifically stipulated that it could be used for ventilation, and I'm not sure how big their need is. I haven't went back and looked at the spreadsheet, but I'm just wondering if we could, like, two birds with one stone kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and we could look at that. I mean, we could certainly, look at, for example, the ESSER $3 we haven't touched. Because we're waiting for ESSER 2 to run through, and we still have ESSER $2 to draw down and haven't obligated. So yeah, we certainly could look at that and to see if that's the best use of dollars. I mean, I know some districts are buying buses, so if we want to use ESSER dollars instead of that $225 for buses, that's something that we could take a look at. So there's a lot of things that we certainly can use some of those dollars for one-time purchases like that.
Can you clarify something? With the statement you just made, it sounded like you were saying that if we use ESSER funds, we're actually going to end up paying more.
Yes.
Why is that?
There's the Davis-Bacon Act at the federal level. And so that says that if you are using federal dollars, that the contractor has to pay the prevailing wage.
Okay.
And so there's actually, if you go to the Department of Labor site, there's what the prevailing wage in Idaho is for a HVAC technician
Right.
or a excavator. And so if we're going to use federal dollars, then when we go out to bid or we go out to quote, we say, quote it for Davis-Bacon for prevailing wage. And typically it's about 30 to 40% more because they're paying their people more.
Okay.
So we
So we're
would use
assuming
more,
that.
we would
Yeah.
use more funds.
Yeah,
We
right.
wouldn't pay more funds, we would just deplete the funds. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, it's not like we would use
Understood.
the ESSER funds and then we have to come up with 30 to 40% more.
No.
But if it's possible to use the ESSER funds, I think we need to look at all the pools of money and figure out what the priority is. Because if it's possible to use those ESSER funds, then maybe we could use, I'm not sure, the plant facility levy money for maybe other things. You know, we're talking about doing the keyless entry, but I'm thinking of those doors at the junior high, thinking, I mean, the keyless entry is almost a waste of money on those doors because they're just so bad, you know, they've just been, I think they've been welded and fixed, you know, probably on every shop class that's went through there, but, you know, those types of things, maybe we can, you know, look at, you know, you guys know more about what needs to be done, but maybe we look at the pools of money that are out there and see if we might be able to accomplish
No, and I-
more. Complete, you know?
Yeah.
Sure, we're, you know, looking at all that. I mean, our long, you know, some of that, when you look at some of the plans that you have, the matrices going out, I mean, that's sort of our concern is that, you know, to be blunt, the plant facility fund, you know, if that stops and then ESSER funds are only a one-time thing,
Right.
then we're good for 2 or 3 years and then we sort of hit a cliff. So that is a concern.
So hopefully we won't have to replace doors every year. That would be the next thing. But
So the concern then is in this planning, due to the fact that facility levy will not be being renewed for potentially 3 years. Is that correct? Because it's a 2-year.
It was a 5-year, well, it would be $1.1 million that.
But it isn't necessarily gonna be 3 years, because if it goes how we had talked about, if the plant facility levy is combined with the instructional levy and it runs in March of 2023, and there's ESSER dollars that bridge over to Trustee Grissom's point, it may not be exactly the same 1.146 per year, but there could be a bridge because of the dollars. And then the public, if it was very aware and very transparent, community meetings, the board was there, we talked to the patrons. These are our facility needs, and it was very clear that this is what we need. These are our instructional levy funds. This is what we need for plant facility. We're gonna combine it and you're gonna go to the polls one time. That's how it was successful last time. And again, I just wanna remind everyone, the reason we didn't run the plant facility levy again is because our instructional levy, which is the most important thing to keep up our staffing, because as you saw by the budget, and you'll see in my presentation, reasonable class sizes is the #1 concern of our patrons and #1 issue that they are concerned about. Well, safety and security, and then, sorry, Lisa, safety and security and reasonable class sizes, that we only won by 32 votes. So we have to make sure that we really are clear and transparent. So I just want to reiterate that I do believe that the community will support our needs if we combine it together and go out and really educate people. The bleachers will definitely be a voting, you'll get a lot of people out to vote if the bleachers are addressed.
I hope it doesn't take that long.
Yeah. There's other things to that.
I understand that.
Project. Yeah. So any other questions on this? Like, do people have any questions on what's moving forward?
So this is the anticipation for this year, correct? Any questions? All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next is the safety update.
Normally when I'm up here, it's just little tidbits of information, but we've had two fairly significant events in the last week and a half that I want to just kind of have a conversation with the board about. So the first one is the Oxford High School active shooting event that occurred in Michigan. Anytime there's an active shooting event in a school, one of the very first things our district level team does is look at the after incident reports and try to kind of get into the nitty gritty of what went well for them, and then would it have gone as well for us, and then areas where maybe mistakes were made, would we have made those same mistakes. So there's just, it's always a learning opportunity. So I just wanted to share with the board some of the things that went well and what I think would go well for us, and then lessons for us. Not so much lessons for us, because I want you to know that the things that didn't go well there, we would have done well because it's in our protocol. So what went well for them is that they've trained enough with students that there was, it's on TikTok, so you could watch the video, but once the lockdown was initiated and students recognized there was actually a shooter in the building, there was a group of kids who went into a classroom that had no teacher in it. They went into the classroom and they made sure the door was locked, and then they barricaded the door with every desk and chair that they could get their hands on, which is exactly what they should have done, and that's how we train with our kids. We don't know for sure because the after incident report has not been released, but in the video you can hear somebody knock on the door and say, "This is the police, everything's okay, I need you to open the door and let me in." The kids didn't say anything, they just waited, and the person knocked again, and he restated. And one boy spoke up. So we train our kids, you do not say a word. One boy spoke up and said, "We're not comfortable doing that right now." And then the person outside said, "Bro, just open the door and let me in." And the kid said, he said, "Bro, that's not a cop." And they all immediately went out the window. So in when we practice, the kids know that one, you're silent the whole time, you don't speak. And then at the end of an event, an actual event, our teachers know, and at the high school level, the kids know that law enforcement, if they wanted into the classroom, would put their badge under the door and say, "This is law enforcement, this is Rathdrum Police Department. We are coming in," because they will have a key. "Please make sure your hands are where we can see them. And everybody just stay still while we enter." And then they open the door and they come in. So that's all in our process and protocol. So our kids would know that our law enforcement would never knock on the door and ask kids or somebody to open it. And never would they call them bro.
Yeah.
So that part really, from my perspective, somebody who's been leading this initiative for the last 7.5 years, that made me think they obviously have trained and practiced. And so I want to make sure that you hear that, because I every once in a while I kind of look at social media just to see how our parents are feeling about things. And the last time I looked, there actually was an elementary parent who was complaining about our lockdown drills, and that she felt like we were doing too many of them, and that it was causing kids to be fearful. And there were several parents who spoke up and said, "I actually appreciate the fact that the district is practicing, but I want the public to know that this is why we practice. It's so imperative that our kids know how to respond in an emergency." And we all can say it's not going to happen here, but so many people have said that and it's happened. And so being proactive and preventative is how we stop things from happening, and we're really good at that. But we also need to practice and make sure that kids have some muscle memory as to how to respond in the case of an emergency. Lessons moving forward, and so there are two things that when we meet next week I want to bring to our team is there has been kind of a push from the district level team that we would have a code word at the end of a lockdown so that the kids and staff knew that it was over and that they just needed to wait for instruction. But watching that video and knowing that that was a student in the school, if we had a code word, the kids would know what that is. It would be very easy for them then to somehow give the code word and get those doors open when we don't want them open. So it's gonna be a hard no. We've been talking about it, but I think it's the wrong direction for us to go. The other thing I wanted you to know is this school district, I don't know if you guys saw in the news, but there are 2 $100 million lawsuits filed against the school district by parents for things that the district did not do well. They never checked the kid's backpack. That's in our protocol. That's one of the very first things that we do. Counselor made the decision to send the kiddo back to class without any notification to the administrator. That would never happen in our district. Our administrators always take the lead on those kinds of things. We have a very detailed threat assessment protocol. And one of the first things that we do in that situation is send law enforcement to the home and request access to the home. And we actually just did this with the threat assessment that we just did. They requested access, they go in and they actually verify that there's no access to weapons in the home. That's part of our threat assessment protocol. They didn't do that. So there are things that they're probably going to pay for that we have dialed in. So I just want the board to know that I feel really confident with how we handle these things.
Quick question, when you say they go in and
Law enforcement.
law enforcement,
Yeah, that just happened in our district. We just had that, and at first the dad didn't want the law enforcement in, and then he just kind of let them know that we have 2 parents who are sitting in jail right now facing manslaughter charges because they didn't do their due diligence with their son. This kind of covers your bahookie, and it also makes sure that we know that your kiddo's gonna be safe in that school. So they cooperated, and so we were able to verify that the student has no access to weapons. So those were some big ahas for me that I felt it was important for you guys to know as a board that we definitely have those things in place. So any questions or concerns about this situation? Because then I'm going to go on to the next one.
Yeah, but I agree with the code. There's no way to protect that. Everybody in their brother.
when you're trying to teach your kids what that word is, and it's one of the kids that's, yeah, no, I think it's great that you've taken the time to step back and look at what was done right and what was done wrong, and to see where we can improve ours. So that's awesome.
We do
Or
that every time.
just know that, that's great.
Yeah, and well, right away I went back to our threat assessment protocol, make sure we have this all dialed in, right? And we do, so. Okay, so then the next incident that there are some things I want us to consider before I go into the next incident. In this particular shooting, it took the police 6 minutes to get to that school. That's a long time with somebody with a weapon in the school. I would really, I would really like to ask the board to consider, as we start to consider a budget for next year, a way to add one more armed guard, so that we have an SRO at Twin Lakes, and we maintain our SRO through the county with Brett Clausen, and then an armed guard at Garwood, or vice versa. But our county schools have the longest response time. So if we have an incident in Raft Room, it's a 2-minute response time. Although when we had the incident that happened at Lakeland High School 2 years ago this January, it actually took Raft Room Police Department 6 minutes to get into the school. But our armed guard was at that classroom where the lockdown came from in 30 seconds. And I mean, time saves lives. Every second matters in these kinds of situations. So I know it's a financial ask, but it is something I'm asking the board to just kind of have in the back of your mind and consider as we start to talk about budget in the spring. And then just so you know, our plan is to continue, and I know we talked about this, but this is even more important to me now, that we continue to roll out that citizen response to active shooter event, which is called CRACE. And that training is provided free of charge by the Boone County Sheriff's Department. And Garwood will be the first one this year to go through that training. And it's a 4-hour training. So I think the plan right now is they will do it on the Friday before spring break, which is a non-student day. So as we get closer, I will reach out to the board, and if any of you wants to be there to see how that rolls out, what it looks like, we can certainly make that happen. Okay, the other incident I wanted to share with you didn't go as well as I would hope that it would. Not because of anything on our end, but we had that incident last week where, and Michelle was, the board chair Thompson was actually here when Dr. Meyer got a call from one of our principals saying, one of our admin assistants' husband just called and said that there was a shooting in Post Falls and they're chasing the shooter, and they're in the Hauser Lake area. And so Dr. Meyer came and said, do you know anything about this? And I said, no. So I reached out to Captain Miller. He was in the middle of this event, so didn't answer the phone. I called our SRO, Brett Clausen, and he answered right away. And so he was able to give some information. The concern that I had was that, and he and I debriefed this, he knew about that incident for a long time and didn't think to pick up the phone and call me and let me know. So
When you say he, you're referring to the SRO?
yes.
Okay.
And so, and he reached out to me and said, can we debrief? Because I feel like I did some things I should have done some things I didn't do. And it always comes down to communication every time. If we have any kind of issue, it's the communication. So there was a shooting at Coco Pelli coffee stand on the corner of Pole Line and 41 at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe even a little bit before. And then he took off in a car. At some point, he carjacked a car and he ended up in Hauser Lake. They were chasing. He actually ended up in one of our former employees' houses. That was shocking. Before they finally tracked him down. Well, we didn't find out about it until 2:40, and our elementary kids released at 3 o'clock. And so when I called Brett, I just said, do I need to hold these kids at school and have parents come pick them up? I don't want to put them on a bus and drop them off in the middle of a manhunt for somebody with a gun. And so he said, let me check and see where they are with everything. He called me right back and he said, you need to hold the kids. So we had a very short window. Dr. Meyer and I were typing a sky alert out to parents, quickly explaining that we had a couple bus routes that we were holding and parents would need to come pick up kids. So my conversation with Brett was, I need to know as soon as you know, because there are things at the district level that Dr. Meyer and I need to at least get started on, so that we're not putting parents in the position where we're giving them literally 15 minutes to figure out how to get their kids. So work in progress. But thankfully, everybody on our end was safe, but it could have gone better.
So do any of the police agencies have any type of protocol that if something significant like that is occurring during school time, that they notify the schools? Is that not a thing?
It doesn't appear to be a thing, because this is the second time with a different agency this year that we had an incident and nobody thought to give the school district a call.
That seems odd.
Yeah. So, and both times I had to have really direct conversations, and they've promised that I'll be the first person to be called. We'll see. And I know when you're in the thick of things, you're managing the crisis, but I'm not asking the person in the thick of things to call me.
Right.
But we have other people who are working within our district who have that knowledge, who could pick up the phone. And he said, well, next time I will call the principals. I said, no, I need you to call me, and then I will notify the principals, and then we will work from the district level to make sure that we are taking care of our kids. So that was kind of a conversation.
Yeah, that could have been horrible for the bus involved with that situation.
thankfully, we had an employee whose husband's a firefighter who heard it on dispatch, and that's how we found out. That's not how we should have found out.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it seems like the other agencies would have their own protocols,
Right.
and we would be on the protocol. So whoever's making notifications to whomever, whenever, reverse 911 they do in the areas, or, I mean, there has to be somewhere we need to be listed.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to ask the sheriff. or
That's at the top of our agenda because we do, Captain Miller usually attends our meetings from the Coogan County Sheriff's Department. Deputy Clausen always attends. And then we usually have Sergeant Freese from Rathdrum Police Department and Chief Sanchez from Spirit Lake. They're all part of our team. So that would be one of the first things we talk about is what needs to happen within those agencies to put a protocol in place so that when there's an issue within our school district boundaries, that there's a phone call made to me.
Right.
So that we know.
And being that they were so far over there, they probably did think that, because they just think of the raft. or
They were
the
thinking
area,
Post Falls,
yeah.
not
Right.
that Hauser is. Their Post Falls addresses, so.
Right.
Well, and they don't
Yeah,
ever,
you know.
in the midst of things, they're not thinking about schools and they're not thinking about dismissal times. And that's what happened in the last situation. We had the house explode behind Lakeland High School. Right when the middle school kids were dismissed and they had this whole crowd of kids over there watching the house on fire. And that could have gone really badly. And, so it's just communication. So those are the two kind of big situations this time. So
Do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
you're welcome.
Next up is the superintendent's report.
All right. Well, the first thing is a positive fun. Board Chair Thompson and I have gone, after tomorrow, we'll have been to every school and every department in the district. So we've been making the rounds and having fun and saying hi to everyone and oodles of fun and doing a little bit of school visitations, tours. Principals have been allowed to, point out things in their buildings that they'd like addressed. And so it's been a time for us to just work together and see what from different people's perspective, what their needs are. So that has been fun. Put out the annual parent survey. It's still continuing to come in. I'm going to send out a reminder that they need to get it before we go to Christmas break. When I put this together for the board, it was just on Tuesday. So there's still 2 more days till the day, but we have to upload this on Tuesday. So it's actually been almost 2 weeks now, but we did an adjusted scale. Last time when I asked for feedback, Board Chair Thompson wanted to make sure that there was not like 3, 4, and 5 weren't satisfied, but there was really a continuum so it was clear this time 1 was extremely dissatisfied to 5 extremely, so they could rank it there, and it wasn't error on the side of the positive, like 3, 4, and 5 is all positive and 1 and 2 isn't. So it's more spread out this time. And you can see so far there was 139 responses, and this is what it is so far. I'm going to, once this finalizes at Christmas time, I will give the board access to the entire thing along with all the comments, because there's several comments, which I haven't read through all of them yet, but there is a lot of comments that the board will want and I will want to read as well. Giving you an overview so far, the teachers and staff continue to be the #1 things people like most about our district is the people, which is good. That makes me very happy. 54% on that, 17 just overall district functioning, and you can see the family atmosphere is the 3rd top there. Area I think our district most needs to improve. Other areas, and they've listed some below, which you'll see in comments when I share those. And then you can see extracurricular programs and opportunities, and then level of academic rigor. Those are the top 3
for the areas that we need to improve. And then I did something different this year. The topic has come up a few times in several discussion points. I know it's hard to see this, so I'll show you. You can obviously zoom in on your computer, but I'm going to make it bigger for you here. But I wanted to show you that this is how it comes back. When you look at it, you'll have to scroll along. But I wanted to know what are our family's top 5 priorities? And I put down things that we have talked about as a group and other concerns the board has shared with me. So we always have the small neighborhood schools because that was my #1 feedback from parents when I first moved here, and it continues to be. This is something that makes us the top 2, small neighborhood schools and reasonable class sizes, extracurricular, safety and security facility. And then I added student enrollment because we had a lot of feedback that you folks have got and you've given to me that people are concerned about the number of people moving in and how fast we are growing. Other issues, bullying and harassment issues that people are concerned about. I wanted to see what the feedback was that. Curriculum, we have had several people. Sorry. It's okay. We just talked about safety and security.
Yeah, right.
So, it's appropriate, yes.
By the back door,
Okay.
oh, there's an issue, yeah, sorry.
Curriculum has come up. We've been doing a lot of curriculum in the board meetings. You've been looking at them. We've brought it up. Several concerns about CRT. We did a resolution that I put on there, and then also the district budget, because that is an issue that has come up as well. So I added those bottom 4 to our list. And I decided instead of just looking at what was their top thing, like, let's just get what their top 5 is so that the board and I would have, some more feedback. I only put for today's presentation the top 2 priorities, but I will share the entire thing with you when I get a little bit more data at the end of this week. But you can see those are the colors there. And so just to point out, just a top overview, and again, we only have 139 so far, but you can see safety and security for people's top priority is by far the #1. If you look at #1 and #2 together, and when you get to number 3 and 4, they're all pretty much just like the same, like they're low. So these 2 added together really gives you a pretty good grasp of what people are thinking. So the safety and security is very important, and you can see reasonable class sizes, obviously the very next important one, and then small neighborhood schools, and then on from there. So curriculum has gone, pretty higher than I thought that it would be, the curriculum. So I'm glad that the board did reach out for parent volunteers and say, please be involved. We have talked to some parents recently saying the board has every curriculum piece in our district is here available at the district office. And also I did have principals put in their newsletters, please proactively tell parents they can come in and are welcome to look at our curriculum at any time. They can come into the school and ask to come look at it. We also, just so everyone knows, on the public, anyone who's watching and into the minutes, is that the board has put every curriculum here at the district office. So if people want to come in and look at it, they can come in and look at it, touch it, feel it, and look at it with their own hands. So I just wanted to give you a brief update of where we were in this parent enrollment and tell you that more is to come. So that's what I have so far. Thank you.
Moving on to unfinished business. I had asked a while back about the directors and officers liability insurance policy, and it was provided, the policy was provided to us for review. And then a memo was provided regarding that. Does anyone have any questions? We are covered by directors and officers insurance. Does anyone have any questions or comments, concerns on that?
So if someone chooses to sue a board member, it's actually going to cost the insurance company, which then in turn costs the district. So
It would, yes, it
Right.
would cost the district because the rates would go up.
okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. questions on it or comments? Okay, thank you for getting that information for us. And then on the technology safety update, the goal was to have had a presentation at this board meeting. Unfortunately, Chad Parsons wasn't able to come, so we went ahead and bumped it to the January meeting. I just want to make sure everyone knew it wasn't an oversight, it was just a dealio. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have several items in here, and I traditionally break them all out. Do we have any questions, comments on the minutes of the previous meetings? I did on the regular board meeting minutes for November 11. And I honestly would like to table that. I would like to do some work with you so that we can do more of a summative description instead of more of a verbatim. On top of the one thing that stood out was under the approval, it says Lisa Sexton included that it was recognized in the agenda. I'm not sure what that statement meant. And I have a feeling it meant that, because I remember the presentation and Lisa just acknowledged that they had included an action item on first read. And so it was just sort of just a clarifying thing, but I would like to work with you on the minutes. So if we could just table approval for the regular meeting minutes until the next board meeting, I would appreciate that. And then we can spend some time on those. But this 2 special board meetings and the workshop minutes, I would be willing to entertain a motion for approval, or I would be willing to entertain a motion on those minutes. I'll move to approve
the special board meeting minutes for 11/3/21, 11/9/21, and the workshop minutes of 11/16/21, and table the minutes of 11/11/21 of the regular board meeting.
I'll second that. Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the HR items.
I think maybe I did that. I think maybe that should have been 2 motions. I'm sorry. Yeah, because you really can't make a motion in the motion.
Okay. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, well, because I said table the other one, so you had made you said you would like to table, so I need to amend the motion to exclude the tabling of the minutes for 11/11/21. But I will second the chair's motion to table the minutes of 11/11/21.
Okay. So having a motion to table in a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And we don't need to do a revote on the.
I think
on your amended motion. Do we? Okay. Wait.
I'm
Is anybody in agreement? Okay. Moving on, but thank you for catching that. Moving on to the HR items, we have the memo from the HR director. Do we have any questions, concerns, or comments on the memo or the resignations that were presented? I don't. Okay, I will entertain a motion on the, there's also the alternative authorization for Maggie Mayernick. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the alternative authorization? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion on the HR items.
I move to approve the HR items as presented.
Second.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next, we need to certify that David Quimby has been declared trustee as of Zone 4, and Robert or Bob Jones has been declared trustee, elected as trustee of Zone 5. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the documents that were presented for this? And I will entertain a motion regarding the declaration of David Quimby as trustee of Zone 4 and Bob Jones as trustee of Zone 5.
I'll move to certify that David Quimby has been declared elected as trustee of Zone 4, and Bob Jones has been declared elected as trustee Zone 5 by County Elections.
Second. A third. Second.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the regular and special bills presented. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns regarding what was presented? I have one question, I guess, would be more it. To Brian and Mr. Ferriola, I noticed that we did an emergency roof repair at LMS. Is that on the agenda or with regard to where we are with getting out of the roofing business, so to speak? of the buildings?
No, that actually was from the windstorm that we had a little
Okay.
while ago, and it was the shop building.
Okay.
And that actually was covered by insurance.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the emergency repair.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious about that.
I have some, a couple of questions. The progress invoice for Hayden Ross, how many more of those invoices? do
That should be the final, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, well, we usually pay them a little bit upfront, but yeah, that's definitely the last one.
Okay. Just for my own information, these lodging, payments for lodging, whether I think some are cross-country and some of their extracurricular, is that like the whole team we're paying for lodging? Is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah, and the coaches.
And the admin team.
Right, yeah,
they go
I
together.
figured it was everybody, but
Well, like with cross-country, it's only those that qualified for state, right? Not the entire cross-country team, but only those who have qualified and made it to state up. Because that one is a kind of an individual.
Same with wrestling, golf, and tennis, and track.
oh. Oh. Looks like we purchased or replaced. I guess I should say, did we purchase or just replace equipment for the food services building or?
Yeah, those were that was equipment it's for the food service program,
Okay.
but it's going out to the buildings. I think
Oh, I
most
see.
of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so like,
Okay.
and actually, Mr. Doyle is working on looking at a truck replacement and some oven replacements. They're like their carts that they have like a salad bar and stuff. Those are original to the start of the program, 1999.
Okay.
So he's looking at, we've got our money's worth out of them.
Yeah.
And with, that fund doing well because of the changes of reimbursement from federal, it's a sort of a good time to catch up.
Can I have some clarification? When we're I just want to make sure when we're purchasing these items for Chartwell's use, they're actually our items in a sense, correct?
Yeah, the district is, Chartwell's is the, they're providing the management services and effectively they're buying the food on our behalf, but the equipment is ours. So like if Chartwell's, let's say they didn't have the contract
Right.
when it expired, the truck is ours, the ovens are ours, all that is our equipment.
Right.
The people go, and then of course we'd have to procure the food for the program on an ongoing basis.
Right.
I mean, that, when you see that Chartwell's bill, it's really paying for their staff, which is Mr. Doyle, and all the food service servers and cooks are their employees.
Right, but it was my understanding that we're also paying for food.
Correct.
Right.
And that's part of it, and then the other is the food, which they acquire through their processes. So if we decided to do the food service program in-house, for example, Coeur d'Alene Schools does that. I think Post Falls does too. Anyway.
No, I
But
understand Chartwell's,
right, we would buy the food and then pay our own staff.
right, Chartwell's is our subcontractor.
Correct.
Yes, no, I understand all that. I just wanted to quadruple clarify that when we're making these purchases for the benefit of Chartwell's, we're actually just benefiting our district. Chartwell's is using them.
Right, yeah, so actually all this stuff, even the, the hot pans and all the spatulas, they're actually district property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she got to see those on the tour last
Yeah.
week.
It's very
And
interesting.
Mr. Doyle did show us where he'd like to expand, so she got to see full, right up close and personal how tight they are over there.
Yes. Did we, at the start of the year, I thought we took care of the Chromebook licenses, but we just spent another $106,000 for headphones and Chromebook licenses?
Some of those that might have been just, go ahead.
The ISAC testing is coming up, and that's when principals put in their requests for headphones so that people can concentrate and listen. And I don't know if you've ever been in an ISAC room, you can't have the audio coming out, and people can't. So, yeah. And then we had an increase in enrollment, so we needed Chromebook licenses that we didn't finish getting from the beginning. So that's, sometimes the bills are delayed past when we actually get the inventory.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Fox. We had a surplus sale?
Surplus.
We had a car.
We had the car.
We did it at a little car, yeah.
But I thought that was,
I had to advertise that.
okay, no, I know, but I thought that was, okay. That was the high schools, I thought.
Yes, it was a high schools, and I just put the ad in. I guess we could charge the high school.
Just trying to see how everyone's. connected.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah, I'm going to send it to the Coeur d'Alene Press to advertise, and actually, that ad actually is how. So I was stunned. Somebody actually reading the Coeur d'Alene Press, that ad worked. I mean, a lot. I mean, legally we have to do Coeur d'Alene Press, but we also put some feelers out, like on Craigslist and other things,
Right.
but
Gotcha.
just to try to get it. But the
So
only
it's-
response we had was from a gentleman.
So the paid for ad is.
The paid for ad actually worked.
Effective.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Does anybody have any further comments, questions? Thank you. So then I will entertain a motion regarding the regular and special bills.
I'll move to approve the regular and special bills as presented.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to new business. First action item is the curriculum. It's the second read of the curriculum that we read that we reviewed at the last board meeting. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this curriculum that was previously presented? I'll entertain a motion regarding the curriculum.
I'll move to approve the curriculum as presented.
Second the motion.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the Dhs Prom Venue. We've had a request from Timberlake. Previously, we approved their prom being held at Coeur d'Alene Resort. They'd like to move it to the fairgrounds. It appears they will be saving money. And it appears that it will be properly staffed and manned. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about the Dhs Prom Venue? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion regarding the Dhs Prom Venue.
I'll move to approve the Dhs Prom Venue as submitted.
I'll second that.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the student handbook for REACH. There was the student handbook for REACH is being presented for approval. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns? No. Dr. Passing.
I'm little markers here.
Want to reiterate that the reason that it's coming to you now is because they had been starting it last year and it was changing from completely online to a hybrid, and the staff was working on it. And, you know, right before school started, we got a principal and she wanted time to work with the staff on it. So hence the delay in coming to you, why it didn't come with all the other ones. Just want to get some input and stakeholders feedback.
Okay, so I guess the first thing is on page 7, it refers to the immunization information. There was a legislative statute update that anytime we refer to immunizations as quote required, we have to also inform the parent, guardian, whomever, that there's also an exemption. So we have to do that written and verbal. So we need to update the book, and we also have to cite the statute, which is 3948, which it is on the bottom of the policy too. But that was so in that language.
Okay.
You probably just pull it out of the statute and plop it in there. It's a technical term, but.
It says right here, certificate of exemption must be signed, but, so it's here, but not in the correct wording is what I think you're saying.
We can just the right verbiage.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just have to, you have to grab it out of there so that they know that, yeah, they can do the exemption. That's the wording is in the statute there. And there was the learning coach agreement. Can you provide the board with a copy of that? Maybe you have, I don't ever remember seeing that agreement.
I will ask Mrs. Dunbar to do that for you. Actually, it's running. And her hyphen. The learning coach agreement.
Yeah, that was on, it's referenced on page 11.
right here.
10, I'm sorry. I don't know that it seems like I've lost some of my bookmarks that I had. Let's see. I guess that'll be it for now. I apologize that it doesn't look like it's saved in my other notes. 'Cause I had
The actual request done in the summary. I think maybe she's missed a word. It says, I would like to have the review / approve the REACH handbook. And I think maybe she meant to say I'd like to have the.
Right. Okay. we'll get the agreement and then email the board. and so we can get it. Any other comments? questions?
I remember some others, but I noticed, say the other ones. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I don't have any other words at the moment.
Anybody else have any comments, questions, or concerns?
So I'll move to table this, right, until the proper amendments have been made. Handbook.
Submit it with the. However, it's up to the board.
Did you want to try to find out what you were missing? And have that addressed as well?
Well, I don't want to hold them up from having the handbook. We probably right to approve it as it is and just do like we did before tentatively with the curriculum, and if the board comes up with some other issues, and we'll just say, hey, we need to update this to. I mean, I'm fine with that. It's fine.
A clarifying question for the learning coach agreement. Would you like that to be a link, an active link inside the handbook, or is it just something you guys want to view?
I'm just
How would
curious
you
what the
prefer
wording is,
Okay.
what,
So just, you just want to see it, not an active link, okay?
because the learning coach would be, according to this handbook, if I'm understanding right, would be the parent or guardian or whomever they use, you guys used another term, whoever is helping the student learn.
While remote, right? Yeah,
Right, so I thought it,
okay.
you know, the board should probably look at it, since technically that's the closest to the parent.
And then I would think also, trustee Grissom, that you find your, if it comes back, I think you can always give a chat and just whatever questions need to be. That being said, I would entertain a motion regarding the student handbook for each.
I'll move to approve the student handbook reach with the noted corrections. And find out if it's incorrect, and we'll come back and do that.
I'll second the motion.
Bring a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the bus bid approval. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this? I do. I recall not that long ago, you brought a bus bid to us and it was like 90,000 a bus. Is this a second go at buses? Are we getting 4 more buses, or are we updating the previous proposal you brought to us?
No, this is sort of a circle. We did purchase new buses last year, and they just arrived like in August.
Okay.
Because they were delayed. And then in October, we sort of brought to you the RFP and the bus specifications, or really the RFP, asking the board is okay for us to go look for, 4 more buses for really this year that'll get delivered this summer. And so that's what this was.
Okay.
And you approved it. So the actual bids came in.
Okay.
And it's been our practice before we tell the lowest responsible bidder if we're going to move forward, that the board gives the okay.
Okay. So we were a little over the 90,000. No.
I generally, no doubt the cost of buses this year is the highest. I mean, definitely inflation's hitting in all areas. We traditionally were able to usually get a regular ed bus for 90-92, and a special needs bus is usually about another 5,000 or 6,000, depending. And the goal, it's always the lowest price for the whole order combined. And this year, yeah, being over 100,000 is definitely, yeah, a little higher, and that's probably the new reality.
Have we used price and sales and service before?
Yes, that's who we bought from last time.
Okay.
They were the lowest, and the previous was actually Carlos.
Okay.
And this is, you can see how close it was.
Yeah.
That's, last year, it was a difference of about $7,000 or $8,000, and Bryson came in and they were the lowest responsible bidder. This year, that's as close as I think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Less than $1,000 difference between the two. For buses.
Yeah, what age are the buses that we're replacing?
I can get you that information. It's usually the oldest ones that we have are in the worst condition. They will likely be in the 90s or early 2000s.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I have a question, just out of kicks and giggles. Because this is such a big order. Is there any way we could get the price on the 2 general education buses from Bryson and the 2 special ed buses from Carlos?
Well, not the way we wrote the RFP. Traditionally, we've always said we're going to have the one vendor that year and combine them. We could write it or do an RFP just for regular ed buses and just for special ed buses.
I mean, it's tough to know what the
Right.
result's gonna come back and how they give you that, but, and I would see on 2 buses, like 2 general buses. But since it's such a big order, I don't know how, it's not that much of a difference in money, but,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what the
threshold is.
threshold is and what the hoops to jump through to make that a reality, if it's, if it's already past the time window for being able to see if that's a possibility, if Bryson would honor the 2 general, and just be frank, I'm kind of frank in business dealings. Okay. I'd like to award you, would you honor this price if I awarded you this? I'm just curious, because that saves us $2,000, which.
Just good negotiating. I mean,
I'm just curious. I know that there's a process in place that we have to follow, so I don't know if it's already past that.
Yeah, for this year would be past that. So when we wrote the RFP, we said that we'll take the lowest responsible bidder in the aggregate, the total price, including whatever the trade-in might be, plus the buses. So in the future, we could write the language saying that that we are going to look at the bus type individually and go, it's sort of how we define it. And we could
I think
certainly
that
do
might be
that.
a good lesson to learn for the next time. Like if there's 2 different products, maybe have them bid out each product separately, because then it gives us the ability to say, because, some people can build something, like a special ed bus, cost them $11,000 more over a general ed bus, one company, and it was $6,000 on another. So maybe going forward on a big order like this, just break it up. And it was just interesting to see how one was $5,000 more on a general ed.
Yeah.
And one was $11,000 more, it just was.
Yeah, and you'd have to see, it's a good question, because if we just, let's say, just ordered special ed buses, would they be more? Is it just the way they're doing their internal pricing or all those in that? I don't know.
Doing it as a package of all 4, and that's the pricing they were able to just kind of split out between all of them, and they just threw this money at these and this money at these, and it really isn't like the individual. Yeah, it's interesting it would be.
I just say on a
interesting to see.
big purchase like this multiple, it might be something we could purchase. Like, framing material, sheeting from a different vendor.
Right.
Because it saves me $1,000, which is a big deal. Sure. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
I was just curious.
Trading, probably get scrapped. price for that.
Sell it for a small tiny home to somebody.
I was just gonna say, they're a big deal right now. You can probably get more out of them to turn around and throw them in the Coeur d'Alene press.
We have actually done that and gone to like Wineland auction.
Uh-huh.
It's less than that.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, the old buses, especially if they're on blocks, you're not getting a whole lot. But I guess you never know. Yeah, we certainly could try on the trade-in.
Anybody have any questions or concerns?
Thank you very much.
I'll go ahead and entertain a motion regarding the bus bid approval.
So to approve the bus bid approval as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the roofing project proposals for Betty Keefer and Lakeland High School. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding these?
No. This says the Garwood,
Yeah, I just caught that.
yeah, I meant to
Should
make
say
a note to
or
myself. I
something.
knew there was something funny about this, but.
I sent that to him and he fixed it, so I don't know, somehow like that, but
I apologize.
he did fix it though.
So it actually factually is. that
Yeah,
Keefer.
he did fix it.
Oh, it's on both one. Okay,
He just used a template, but I said, and then I know he fixed it, so.
I get it. So we requested Jones Roofing to evaluate and submit an Omnia proposal. Have we ever checked with any other roofing company? Or, I mean, have we put it out to bid like we do the buses and stuff like that? Or did we just go with Jones because they've been doing all the buildings?
Yes, well, we've had, who was the vendor, who was the roofer, was it TNT Roofing? We had, TNT Roofing did a section of Lakeland High School several years ago, and then we also had, did Granite do any work for us? You can't remember.
Not since I've
Been there. So, yeah, we certainly could take it out to bid as opposed to going on the with the procurement contract, you know, with the purchasing cooperative. The reason we haven't is because Jimmy's really has the quality of their work has been higher and we haven't any problems. Like a TNT roof, we ended up almost having to go to court on. It leaked. I mean, Mr. Ferrell could get more into detail on that. And, you know, if we go out to bid, which you can get a good contractor, we really have to be super specific with, you know, the specifications and things like that. And really, Jimmy's won us over on we have, like, I think the Twin Lakes roof and the Timberlake High School roof. I mean, we had some, those were some challenging projects. And Timberlake High School, even after they had done that project, we had leaks the next year. And some of that is just the unique design of that roof and the way there's so many sections that are sort of coming together and some unique angles. And Jimmy's was literally on top of it. They really stood by their work and were there right away. And so when we were having all the problems, effectively, we had to replace the Twin Lakes roof after 10 years, 15. So after 10 years of a new building, because the original roof, there was a perfect storm in a way. One, the roof in original construction was not great construction. So that's not, so there's sort of one strike. That doesn't mean it'll fail in 10 years. Two, we had the two biggest snow years we've had in the last 08, 09, right when it opened up. And we had people on that roof and that hammered that roof. And so those things caused it, but a roof that was built, often when you go for the lowest bidder, this is what you get in public construction sometimes. And that's what happened, the overall, that's obviously, that's part of the overall contract of a new building, and the general contractor, subcontractor did out the roof work. But really, we've done that because we're trying to get these roofs to truly last their extended life. And that doesn't always happen. I mean, you know, Twin Lakes was a bad example. If you look at Garwood and Betty Keefer, our roof, the original roof that we just replaced. And, you know, that definitely lasted over 20 years. And Betty Keefer is 25, 26, 29, you know, really, that's right at its life expectancy, about a 30-year roof. So those were great projects done economically. That's on that.
I had asked Dr. Meyer a question, and I didn't send an email to you about it, and you may not have the answer. But I was curious if our roofs, if the building insurance covers the roofs, and if it is, if it depreciates, the coverage depreciates over the life of the roof, similar to what occurs on houses. Because when you have your homeowner's insurance, the insurance company will usually only insure the roof. I mean, it depletes every year. I was curious if our buildings are in that same position, or if the coverage is just 100% will cover the roof all the time, no matter what, no matter how old the roof is.
Yeah, it's a little different than a home policy. So for example, that, you know, our insurance only covers our roofs if there's like an event.
Okay.
Right. It doesn't. So the Twin Lakes roof that just, you know, you had your snow event, you didn't know about it, and 8 years later, that we just had to repair it. But for example, if there was a windstorm or, you know, something that a roof collapsed from, let's say, a heavy snow load or something, then insurance would cover it, and it would cover the extent they would, if the whole roof was 100%, let's say, failed, they would cover the cost minus our deductible, which is $2,500. So that's, you know, not bad for sure. But let's, for example, they looked at like the roof on the commons, and they also looked, Betty Keeper had some damage to it too, some minor damage. So they looked in the totality and said, well, given the age and all that, sort of the same thing.
Right.
But we think that some of this was already existing, so it did 37% of the damage, and so they give you that much. So,
okay.
So like that $15,000, I think we've made a progress payment earlier, and the insurance covered most of it, but not all of it on the shop at those.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess it's sort of similar to home a little bit. It's a little better than that.
I was just curious,
Yeah,
because
sure.
it's a commercial building, you know, and I didn't know, so I just was curious when she had mentioned Betty Keefer was coming up for roof replacement. Apparently the roofing crew on that building was phenomenal, but
I'm telling you, Betty Keefer and Garwood for given, if you look at the cost of those projects and how well the buildings have held
Ms.
up.
Sexton can tell you that the roofing crew were inmates, and so she can tell you the story. That's
but
super impressive.
And they
I was just curious.
fine work.
No, I mean, I'm glad, I would much rather do preventative maintenance than to have to replace an entire roof. But I was just curious.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And I didn't know, so I'm glad we both know now.
Now we know. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, thank you. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion on the roofing project proposals for Betty Keefer in Lakeland High School.
I'll move to approve the roofing project proposals for Betty Keefer and Lakeland High School as presented.
I will second that.
Bring the motion in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We have the job description up for review or approve for the clerk of the board and the district custodian of records. I did have some information that I did want to add. Unfortunately, it's not here. Would we all like to talk about the job descriptions at this moment?
Didn't we just do the clerk of the board? This one looks different. Maybe that's just because we looked at so many when we did it last.
Well, I know I had requested that the portion of the clerk that was the custodian of records be pulled out to give the custodian of records their own job description. So I do know that some of it came off. And I did compare it with the other one we had, but I did have some other, it is the same one. But I do have some things I'd like to add to that one as well as to the district custodian, and I wrote it all down and it's not here and I don't have my other papers. So let's try my life today. So I would like to table the job descriptions so I can provide my input. Okay, hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the discussion items, we have a first read on supplemental resources for curriculum. They look to be all library books, is that correct? Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments, talking points, anything on this? Then we have the policy committee format up for discussion. This plan of action, I believe, came about because I mentioned to Dr. Meyer that initially the policy committee was created based on her pulling trustee Grissom and I and saying, you guys would be great at this, which we are.
Yep.
However, the frustration is there should be parent involvement at the committee level, and getting people involved actively for this particular project apparently hasn't been very successful. And so you talked with Dr. Pasley and the two of you came up with this?
Yep, so we did some feedback. We reached out to parents and talked to parents. I've talked to some, Dr. Pasley's talked to some. And people aren't wanting to stay on a standing committee and making that much time commit for policy. So this is a draft. We're happy to take input, but we would like to continue moving forward with policy. There's, I know that Board Chair Thompson has a list of ones that are new recommendations from ISBA that we do not have at all that we could start with. And then the next step is ones that have been updated, some timely ones that so she has a list of priorities to start with. And we can't start on that list until we have this approval of the process from you all. So we would like you to look at this and give us feedback if this works for you. This also takes into account the board's desire to put out there to get some anonymous feedback if people so desire. And then, so I would, just to summarize this, we would be getting stakeholder input, but we would be allowing it per policy instead of having a standing committee where people have to come once a week to do something. And we'll give parents the opportunity to give feedback and staff. And then also students, you can see in there, Dr. Pasley and I said we could even get student input if policy directly affects students, so that the board has all of that information when making a decision. So this is our first blush at it, and we're happy to take feedback from you.
So, on the policy review timeline, based on stakeholder input, designated district admin will create a draft of each policy up for review utilizing the board's coding system.
Yeah, so you know how you had a yellow and a green and there was like color
Red.
system, red, okay. You had a color system, that's what, and that is different than what we'd had prior, which was a strikeout and a highlight and something else. We don't care what the coding system is, we want to go with whatever the board wants, so that's referring to whatever the board's comfortable with for a coding system. This is what used to be, this is what we're striking out, this is what we're adding in. We just want to make sure whatever the board wants for the 3 levels, whatever that is, that's what we'll use. That's what that's referring to.
Okay,
Did I answer your question?
oh, well, I don't really know if I asked a question, I'm just sure what it said, because I was trying to understand it.
Okay.
You did help me understand what was written. So thank you.
Well, you look like you still had a question, that's why I asked it that way.
That quizzical.
Quizzical, yeah.
Okay. Because it does talk about, so then the third bullet point down is designated district admin will meet with policy committee. So is this being written from the policy? Is this being written from the policy committee's perspective, or is it? Because, okay, my whole thing is we need help.
Yep.
So, because there is an abundant amount of policies that are significantly outdated. And because we're 2 bodies and then we have our clerk,
Yep.
and the 3 of us are down there doing the best we can with
Yep.
limited time on a weekly basis. And we haven't met for quite some time due to concerns that were expressed on social media. So this is helping the policy committee.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
And so when I say designated district admin, right now, our designated person that would like to take the lead on it to start is Dr. Pasley.
Okay.
So she would like to be there, but then if there's a policy that's particular to like extracurricular, which I know you have worked with before, we would want to have the activities directors from both comprehensive high schools there to help. If there's something specific about immunizations, we would want Nurse Judy there as the lead nurse to be able to. So when I say designated, I could be there if it's something Ms. Sexton could be there. If it's budget, because we had talked about some budget policies, CFO Wallace will be there. So it just means we want to have the resources there so that you're not there sitting by yourself. We want to have people there. But then the stakeholder input as far as students, staff, and parents, we get it to you ahead of time. We can synthesize it so you're not having to look. We're going to give you the raw data, like here's what people said, but then we're also going to take the next step to synthesize it for you so you're not sitting down there going and like, here's our suggested edits and here's what we think would work in the building. And then you guys can say, oh yeah, that's great, or no, we want to add this, or what about this legal reference? And it'll be a little bit step ahead instead of you doing all that behind the work scene. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sort of like.
We're trying to help you.
We did in the past the same thing.
Yeah,
Brooke came
yes,
and sat with us.
Yes.
And Mr. Wallace would
Yes.
come when he had, we've done
yeah.
that.
But then we're getting that parent, the piece that's different is we're really getting parent feedback and all stakeholders, because we'll put it on the website, so any stakeholder could actually go in and say, I want to give input into this policy. And then student feedback, which we've missed in the past, which I think is very important. We've had several students speak to us. We think students, and then also if any admin or teachers, I'm going to give the staff a chance to also give you feedback. So I think those pieces, along with having Dr. Pasley help She has very high executive functioning skills, and I think it will be helpful to the process.
Okay.
And then as we go, if you have different feedback, you say, well, this would help us if you did this, this, or this, we can certainly change this, but we wanted to put something together to, just as a draft for you guys to look at.
Okay.
So that's what the intent of this was.
No, and I understand that. I thank you.
Yeah.
Good job.
I'm really good at taking notes.
Does anybody have any more conversation, discussion to have on the policy committee?
With that being said, do we have your permission to start moving forward with that? As far as getting the list of the ones that we're missing, and we could even,
Sure, I can, yeah, we can do that.
okay. Okay, that'd be great.
Does anybody else, I mean, is everybody okay? Perfect, okay.
That's fine. So this is a discussion item. There is no
Yeah,
action.
right.
There's no action,
Yeah.
correct, it's just a discussion.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the board agenda request form for discussion. It was brought to my attention by our, oh, hey, sorry. It did a new feature that I didn't even know existed. It was brought to me by our clerk that other districts utilize a board agenda item request form. I really liked the idea because it will speed up the process if we have the historical information as to why it's before us, as opposed to asking all the questions and gathering the information in the meeting through questions. I mean, we can still ask our questions, but at least we got some history there. So I did have her implement it for this board meeting. That's why some of, like with every whatnot. I kind of drafted a template with her, but I wanted all the board to have input on the template form for everyone to use. So what she did was she put the one that I'm like, here, let's go with this one. And then I know CFO Wallace has utilized a similar typed form in the past with certain things, not with everything, but with certain things. And then Dr. Meyer pointed out that actually when she was hired, she had a form, but the previous board didn't want the information, so she never utilized it. So I didn't know if we wanted to add to this simple little form that I'm like, we need this information. CFO Wallace's is pretty concise with what I have. His is a little bit more detailed. And then Dr. Meyer's is extremely detailed. So I just wanted board member input. I didn't want the presumption to be that, you know, I implemented this and no one gave input. So do you all think it would be a good idea to have that type of a form for agenda items?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, great. Any comments or conversations on the templates that have been provided? The one that Janelle drafted is the one with our logo on it. I told her I thought that was important. And then the copy of request for board agenda item is Dr. Myers. And then the board request is CFO Wallace's form that he's used for us. It was on there tonight too, so.
Yeah, I like his alternatives, and I definitely like the impacts fiscal. and
Oh,
other.
yeah,
I like that one. That would be huge.
okay,
In my brain anyways, to have those two pieces of information.
yeah, so if someone's bringing us something, we don't really like what's going on, they've already thought about that component, that if the board doesn't really want to put this, what would work on, right, as an alternative, that'd be great.
Chairperson, can you please repeat what you stated that you liked about his form?
Sure, the fiscal impact. Exactly there. He said, yeah, impacts, fiscal or other, and then alternatives.
Okay.
On Dr. Myers, hers, she has fiscal considerations. Would that mean the same thing as impact?
I think so, yeah.
Or not fiscal, she has
Financial.
financial considerations, okay. Yes, the second one with a logo.
Yeah, I like having the, either way, whether it's stated as financial consideration or the impact. It helps to know, is this a one and done, or is this an ongoing thing that we would have to be paying for year after year?
What I like about
It's good too.
What I like about the impact is implying that the district will be putting up this money. What I like about financial considerations is like on the Timberlake High School prom, they're saving money and it's not costing the district anything. So I don't know if it's the semantics of language or if they both have different weight for what they are going to bring in information. Do you have any input that you deal with? Oh, yeah, I did see the smoke coming out, but
The smoke, the steam, and
the wheels were turning.
purple. Yeah, I was just trying to think of it, I'm just trying to think of it from somebody submitting this request. Are they gonna look at that, just financial or consideration or financial, are they just thinking, okay, how much is the cost, like that dollar amount? Would they see them both as the same? And if we had them on there, if we had both on the same form, does that cause confusion? I want it to be simple and user friendly.
That's why
And kind of self-explanatory, just so that we don't have to have an instructions document to go with the form. That's what we just don't want to have that extra. But, at the same time, would it cause, so I'm just trying to see it from, the person that's completing the form.
Well, that's why mine is.
So we can try it and then,
Yeah.
either way, and then once
Yeah.
we use it, if there, something needs to change,
Modify.
obviously it can change.
Mhm.
Because we don't know.
I think that's a very good point.
I think using financial considerations kind of opens it up to either side of the coin. It gives them an opportunity, if there is a consideration, will it cost us money? Are we saving money? Is it a net wash? Kind of opens it up. I think that in that regard, a little broader gives them an opportunity. So like
To
you say, you
explain
don't
it.
have so many, because you get to a form that's got 10 lines. Kind of like on the form that you drafted that was used, the two boxes, the
Yeah.
action or the discussion, well, one of them didn't check either, the other one checked both. Because, there could be.
They don't necessarily know where it's gonna fall in the agenda,
Exactly,
so
right.
to have that's more of a decision for,
Correct.
once it's submitted, that's a decision for the agenda setting committee.
Right.
To decide where that goes.
But I like the look of the one you drafted, it just seems simple, other than maybe adding a couple of things. Because somebody that's gonna submit that isn't really, some people are gonna know exactly how the process works. And some people are gonna look at that and be like,
Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
or.
Yeah, it's quick.
So keeping it simple,
Mhm.
add a little bit more information to it.
Yeah.
I
think you start with the one with the header, and then if you gotta change it, you gotta change it. Isn't that the
Definitely.
simplified one?
Yeah.
Well, actually, we've got two with the logo on it.
Oh, okay.
The one with just, the one with the horizontal line on it is the one that Janelle and I drafted. The one with several line items is Dr. Myers that she brought with her. And then the one without a logo is Brian's.
And neither Brian nor I are attached to it at all. They're
Oh,
just things
yeah.
we've used in the past. So whatever works for you folks.
Yeah,
are
I
great with
asked
us.
that, we could, if we could gather some samples so that people could see what's been used and if we wanted to give input on what we would like to, what we want to expect from people that want to bring something to the board. Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, it's nice to have a form, because maybe somebody doesn't know, how do I get this on the wall? Who do I talk to, where do I go? I mean, it's a simple form now, but can be emailed to them and.
Yeah.
I like it.
And if we defer and say, don't let this intimidate you.
Yeah.
Put NA, that's not applicable, fill that bad boy out to the best of your ability, but don't get afraid of it.
And to Rob's statement, they're definitely gonna be people that are submitting at least one for every meeting,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good, yeah, good.
and there's gonna be other people that are doing it maybe once a year,
Yeah.
or, once in a blue moon, so.
And if we can, whatever happens to the formatting, as long as we can make the header look like the rest of the districts have, I think Dr. Myers is formatted more correctly than the other. Although I like Dr. Myers' form with all the information, I can definitely see how this would come from the superintendent's report.
Mhm.
Because it gives you more background on where we were, where we're going, and what the. Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, just the simple lines and the financial consideration or impacts or whatever we want to call it. Considerations, I guess. And then we'll go from there.
Any further discussion on that? Moving on to the ISBA's affiliation with NSBA, we received a second email. Corporately, we received a second email. And while this from Rachel Addison. She's sent the board 2 emails now corporately, and we've not addressed them. So I was curious if we feel that there should be, if we want to have a discussion on this, we want to move it to another board meeting. If anybody had any input or conversations that wanted to be had regarding the national, I mean, I don't know what we could do as our own little board with respect to,
Put in NSBA from the fund. It is very disturbing that the NSBA has called a parent who cares about their child and is coming to a board, a terrorist, a domestic terrorist, and that they submitted it and got that to our president and got that actually rolling, the ball rolling on that, not okay.
right.
Like, should somebody come in here, both barrels blazing, angry, frustrated, yelling, screaming? No, they should not do that. That's not okay, but it's their right.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess a conversation with ISBA might be good. Look, are you guys gonna?
Well, they did, in their statements, ISBA did say that they were going to revisit it, says if not sooner, at our April 22nd, 2022 executive board meeting. They said they were going to visit the whole NSBA issue.
Do you think it's lip service or do you think it's legitimate?
Well, I'm sure they'll talk about it.
No, I just mean like to put people off. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
We'll address it. We'll talk about it. Well, just shut up. That's kind of just a tactic to kind of just put it on the back burner and not address it.
Well, you never know sometimes the intention, but for the benefit of the doubt, I mean, the whole ball of wax sort of came out of left field. I don't know that anybody was really expecting it, right? And then when NSBA spoke seemingly on behalf of every school board association within the whole country without their input, I mean, then once the local, you know, ours and whomever's became aware that that had happened, then they immediately addressed it. So in the midst of high tension and the whole conversation, I mean, I think this board has been pretty adamant. I know that our own Mr. Bradbury, the LEA representation, and they formulated an email and sent to the whole board stating that they were in no way even behind NSBA or any of that had happened. So I mean, we can, you know, do the same thing. We can formulate the email and we can send it to ISBA and say, hey, what are you going to do about this? If we feel there's a need to do that, or we can wait for them to have their meeting. And I mean, as board member, you know how it is trying to smush everything together that everybody thinks you should have addressed a month ago.
Yeah.
You know, and what's taking so long. You know, so if we sort of put ourselves in their position, I mean, I don't think it's fallen on deaf ears, but that's just, you know, that's my opinion, you know. They said they're gonna address it. I think we should
Give them a
allow
chance.
to
Give them
address
the
it.
opportunity to
Yeah.
do so.
Yeah,
Before we.
Because
come out
we
of
all
it.
know it doesn't happen overnight.
right.
Well, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe ISBA governs anything over us. No. So I don't want the perception of our affiliation with ISBA to be this, you know, ISBA controls our school board, because it
No,
doesn't.
they're just getting our money.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, like they're just getting our money. I think that's the beef she has with it, is that they're getting our money and then they're supporting NSBA. And so I think that's her beef with it. That would be my beef with it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just assuming she didn't say that, but I'm just kind of assuming that that would be why she has an issue.
Yeah, taxpayer dollars are going in the direction
Yes.
for our benefit.
Yeah.
So that we at least have a resource.
Well, they're
for the
using money
districts.
they get from us to
Yeah.
pay their membership dues to the NSBA.
Right.
So, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Pass
trickle
through.
down or throw up, but, okay, so, but because this was discussed or submitted to us corporately, and she didn't ask for it to be patron input, but I did feel that, corporately, we needed to discuss her email and figure out if anything needs to be responded, said, or done.
Kind of just throw
The fact
our
that
voices and opinions out there
Yeah.
on the subject.
Right,
And know that it's not being ignored.
correct. Any further discussion on that? The last thing under discussion is.
I'd like to state policy there publicly. I think trustee Major sort of said that. I don't think anybody here believes that angry parents or happy parents are domestic terrorists.
Absolutely.
So we don't subscribe to that train of thought anyways in this district, so.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Whether they agree with us or not. We
Yeah.
value their opinions.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the last item for discussion is establishing board norms. Our clerk has been listening passionately, I guess would be a good word, to all of the
Sessions.
yes, sessions, thank you, of the convention. And she brought it to my attention about, she had said, you know, when does the board establish their norms? And I'm like, the board's not ever done that. So she brought it to my attention. She had all this information that she had learned. I asked her to provide a memo to the board with regard to what she has learned. Because, I think at our annual meeting, it should be a topic of discussion as to how we want to set up the norms for proceeding for the new year with the board. So she, Amy White discussed board norms, how to set them up. ISBA can do their thing for a significant dollar amount, which I don't know if this rough cost, Janelle, because you state it's travel, pre-meetings, job description manual, or policy update, service and training. We're having the reason why I'm questioning the dollar amount is when they come and provide the initial training for new board members, it's half of that roughly, or was in the past. So are we getting the new board member training and all of this? So it would be an all. Okay.
So when I was having the conversation with Lisa, she was just giving me the rundown of what that dollar amount would include.
Okay.
So that's why I was including all of that information.
Okay. Because Dr. Meyer has mentioned that she has the ability to help guide the board through establishing norms, and that would cost us monies. So,
But if they do it in
a
a,
little,
yeah, but if they do it in a, I mean, that's easy enough to do for norms. That's gathering people's input and funneling and getting
Right.
a set thing similar to how we did our why in your mission statement. But
right?
if it's a full training for new board members and board chair training and other additional things, and it's part of the wraparound, that would just fit in with the day. It'd be perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So any input on moving forward with setting up board norms?
Well, I'd like to have a little bit more clarification on exactly more detailed information.
Okay.
And in defense of the board
Yes.
and their quote norms, I haven't been in a normal board atmosphere since I started in the pandemic.
Yes.
So, I
Yes.
mean, our norm has been pandemic norms.
Yes. You're exactly right.
And so,
Yeah.
Well, let's not change that. I mean, it's worked for us this far.
I mean, we sort of started off on the norm thing, but then the pandemic came and the pandemic has become our norm.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
Right,
Very true.
in dictating every decision we make almost has been
Right, I agree.
and somehow related to the pandemic, whether it's financial, whether it's curriculum, whether it's moving students and teaching us. I mean, that's all we've done. For 2 years. So I get the frustration and expectations of what people read, and they live in their own little world of what they do, but in our world, like, we know those things, but in the midst of the pandemic, established pandemic norms.
Right.
So just for a little clarification. of
Absolutely.
where
Thanks
we're
for
at.
clarifying.
You're
Yeah.
100% correct.
Well, but in respect to protocols, I mean, it would be nice to have had, like, this is how we're going to do this. And
There's
this
an
is how-
expectation.
Yes, and this is how,
Yes.
yeah, we just kind of wing it.
Figured it out.
And I don't like that, number one. So when she brought this to me, I was like, oh, hey, yeah, we can do that. That's a great thing. So,
I think it's a really good idea, especially with new people coming on.
absolutely.
So that they can understand, here's what's expected of you,
Right.
here's what's expected of the superintendent, here's what's expected of the clerk. This is what, I mean, normal,
And we're deciding that all
Whatever.
together.
Yeah,
Not just
exactly.
not just with them coming in and us saying, this is how we do it. This
Yeah.
is how you're gonna do it. This is how it's done.
Like
But
it.
said-
That's like
I
a
like
little
it.
form. I mean, it's like, I want
Exactly.
not just to implementing it. I want
Yeah,
to make
no,
sure
it's-
everybody's on board.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I agree.
I think
Yeah.
it's a great idea.
Just remember this. I mean, I'm going through the exit over here, but just remember this. The amount of information you get as new board members in a new setting and trying to learn what your roles and responsibilities and the protocols and everything is a lot to absorb. So.
Oh, yeah, I
you know,
remember.
So maybe
having
like
it all.
still learning
you
June
know,
or
having it
July.
all
Yeah.
it might be smart to, because it probably in some sort of an open meeting workshop type thing, having it recorded, so you can make reference to it, and kind of get, because you're not gonna absorb everything.
It's
I just
like
remember the
Mhm.
training when I started, and I remember
Right. Well,
it's just a lot
Great
to,
idea.
That's a really,
a lot
to
to soak
defer
in.
back for,
Yeah, to create a video library of. the
Something that's
training.
relatable because you're part of the
Yeah.
discussion, and it's part of.
then we don't have, then we aren't jumping back and saying, well, I think they said this, I think this is what, well, remember when they told, no, not really, and
Yeah,
it would
that's
be
great.
really a good idea for all of us to have.
That's
Yeah.
genius.
I mean, if we're paid. If we're paying for it, why not
Benefit from it.
Yeah.
benefit down the road from it
Yeah,
too,
exactly.
not just in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
The only thing I was gonna add, Chair Thompson, is I really do feel like they've doubled their price, because even when the prior clerk left, that's the amount she quoted, and it's twice what it was. So the only thing I just wanna say out loud is, I know that there's some competing services now of people that are actually qualified trainers through other organizations. I just feel like when we're at that point, we should at least Janelle and I should at least look for the options and offer that to the board, so that we at least give you options, as I think.
I think we need to remind ISBA that Karen and Christy told us that we had a free session coming based on the previous training that we had was false information.
Yeah.
So, that we only got one training from them, and they offered another free training because the other 3 trainings that we had paid for, we were given false
Garbage.
information. Yes. So,
Yeah, and the other thing we, yeah, I don't know, maybe we want to do some due diligence on top of what Dr. Meyer's talking about, because we all have that really big blue book we got.
Yeah.
Where all this is already established.
Oh, yeah.
It's all laid out in the book.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so maybe what we need to do is
Talk about a lot of that.
decipher the book and maybe to take it in chunks.
And jigsaw, yeah.
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 I mean, it's a idea, or rely on somebody else to do it, but I'm with Dr. Meyer, I'm sort of hesitant because, we had questions or things weren't quite the same when we walked away from what we were taught.
Right.
it was kind of, but that's not the right information. We weren't given the right information. But what we've been going on this information for months now, and
Well, and then we would have backup too, if it was recorded, we would have backup to say, that's not what we were told in our training.
Yeah, we can support
Yeah.
our stand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm good with establishing. That goes along with the same thing that Janelle and I talked about. Which is all sort of in the same scope. It's always been one of my things to actually create or a trustee manual for the district to leave behind. So when new trustees come, they have some groundwork. And that was, I think Janelle had taken the note when we she first come on board. But anyway, she's been gathering information and putting it in a shared documents folder, so that the board, whomever, whatever, we can start going through and see, sort of pull some things together. And I guess you said Coeur d'Alene School District has something of the sort. I haven't looked through it yet, so.
they do
That's
have
awesome.
a trustee handbook. So it might be something that we can use as a framework to put together something smart.
further discussion on strategy board members. Okay. Moving on to board member input for future agenda items. I guess this would be input for future agenda items. I had email conversations today with Karen Shavara of ISBA, because apparently the second submission of maps came back wrong again. And there's a little chastising going on because I reached out to Quadrant today and said, what are we doing wrong? Because we are doing it correctly. So obviously something's being amiss. I received a very curt email from Karen, but then she did follow up and was, because to my response saying, okay, not so bad, but we have two options. Karen had stated that ISBA would pay to have Quadrant just redraw our lines and send it to us. Or we could take a third go at it. What I am curious is we could do a third go at it with Quadrant on the phone so that we get this resolved. I don't know what your all availability is. It would be something to do next week. It has to get done and submitted to the State Board of Education for approval.
What's the problem with mine? That's
Well,
what I don't understand. What's
Our
the-
numbers are wrong.
Yeah, they're saying, because of what I did in my own calculations, I'm not gonna say they weren't wrong, but when you take the number and you add them all together and you're doing it in Excel, the likelihood of incorrectly adding is not strong. So my point of calling today was to say, look, this is what I've done. Please explain how we have incorrectly done what you've asked us to do. And what Quadrant did tell me was, you're not the only school district that's having this problem. So I don't know, I don't think it's our error. I think it's either the calculator error or there's some computing component that we're not privy to that's throwing this all off. Because I said, there's absolutely no way. When we added all the numbers up and everything was where it was, we were perfectly fine. And he, the gentleman at Quadrant, well, what got sent back to us was there was a section they didn't even do because they threw all the numbers out of wacky or out of whack and wacky, who knows? But so they didn't even do what we asked them to do. And 2 of the zones are still over the 10% mark. I'm like, how can that be?
So we're not dealing with the same numbers. So do they have a suggestion on Quadrant on how they would suggest this map looks?
I can email Karen back and state we'd like a suggestion from Quadrant about what they think we should
Who
do.
did we pay? Did we pay ISBA or did we pay Quadrant?
We paid ISBA, who utilized Quadrant. And I'm really bad with go-betweens. I'll just let everybody know. I think we've all figured that out. I would just rather go directly to the source and say, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
That's what I did. And I got a little hand slap from Karen because Karen's supposed to be the go-between. We don't have time to keep redoing this over and over and over again, and no one can tell me what we're doing wrong. So the only solutions that are on the table at the moment are to make ISBA pay to have Quadrant draw a map and give it to us for approval, or to hold another workshop. I'm having a heck of a next night. I haven't had anything to drink but my water. Have another workshop and have Quadrant on the phone so that they can tell us whatever it is they can't tell us right now.
I mean, keep lungs. If they're not giving us everything that we need, though, that's the other thing. What do you mean they're leaving
I don't
us
know.
out over here?
According to Karen, we were provided with suggestions of how to correct everything.
Where's that?
I've never seen it. And I told her that. I said, we have because well, here, you want me to read the email?
Well, she needs to send us some suggestions then.
Yeah,
never got any.
We
love
never
those.
received suggestions.
Yeah.
So for the
Suggestions
same
would be
cost or whatever that we've already paid, Quadrant will send us what they think we should do. Their suggestions. Is that what you said for the
No,
first
what
option?
Karen said, well, initially Karen was like, the ISBA will pay, what she said was, ISBA will pay to have Quadrant redraw the maps and they'll just submit it to the State Board of Education.
Oh,
I said,
no.
No, I know,
Yeah.
3 times in my response, I said, It will come back to us for approval. You do not have permission to send it just to the state board. So then she responded back saying, no, I know the board has to approve it. Well, that wasn't in your email, but she said either that they can't get their mapping guy on it until next week. And how do we want to proceed with this? So the options are to have them draw lines and send us something for approval, or to meet again, have some control over it and have Quadrant on the phone. I have no idea what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I don't know how that whole phone thing's gonna work.
Yeah, because they aren't gonna see what we're talking about.
Well, they can come via Zoom and they can see what we're doing. I mean, they can attend via Zoom. It would be virtually. But I mean, this is a third time around and there's no anything other than you did it wrong, here's the map.
Well, she said
This
though
makes
that
no
we,
sense.
I think what we need to see is whatever they suppose the suggestions they gave us.
Yeah, what are the
Yeah.
suggestions?
Okay.
Where is that at? And then if they need, I mean, I guess, once we see the suggestions and
Did the suggestions come with the very original map, or was it this, our first attempt at
I have
redoing
no
those
idea.
lines?
Because
That's the only thing that I can think of is that the original map was the suggestion, because I had broached that with her before. Like, how do we do this? She said, well, we can have Quadrant give you a suggestion, but we don't know your whole area.
right.
Like, okay.
You know what it sounds like happened? I think we need I think what it sounds what happened, because remember the one map and we were like, this doesn't match? Maybe that first map we were going on was their suggestions, and then we started messing with that map that were the suggestions, how they already moved it around.
Well, I don't believe so, because that map at the bottom said, these zones are, you need to fix this. And
Oh,
that's,
it's a calculator,
yeah, and so
You're right.
that's my thing with her is, it's like you keep kicking this map back when I know that we did it correctly. So somewhere there's a hiccup and someone needs to get us through this, because we're gonna keep doing this for another month. This is ridiculous. Because I'm not gonna be doing it over Christmas break. I don't think anybody else is. So,
once we can meet again and have them on Zoom, but I would like to see whatever these suggestions are that she thought.
Yeah,
okay. I'll email her then again and say, look, the board would like to know what the suggestions are that you're stating we should have received in the first place.
Yeah, is it narrative suggestions, or is it like a suggested map? Is there a map that we didn't get that was
Yeah.
a recommendation, or?
Yeah.
That was me.
Listen, if you guys get one,
And we've met twice.
I
Oh,
guess
that
the
has-
third pass, they're gonna pay to get the job completed that we thought we originally assigned them to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
gee, that's nice of you.
Well, we're not paying any more money at all.
Oh, I know that, I
In
know that, I'm
fact,
just saying that they're going to pay to have them complete the
I-
maps.
that they
will
were
be-
supposed to already.
That will be
Yeah.
effective at the
Right.
state level.
So here's an idea, if you get a map from Quadrant that is A-okay,
Mhm.
with everything how it needs to be, you will have all the numbers you need, and you can subtract and add appropriately. So if we get one that is primo, we will have all those numbers there, and if we need to move a boundary here or there, you'd say, okay, by moving this boundary, that's 275 people. So now we, 275 people back, right?
Right.
I mean, that
Oh,
would make
you were here
sense.
at the workshop.
No,
They sent us one back that had all that.
yeah,
And
oh, a
we moved-
suggested one?
No,
Oh, okay.
where we redrew our lines. You were here for the first one,
Right,
and we drew all those lines. They sent us that map with the new lines in it.
And they said,
No.
it's wrong.
And we still had to adjust it a little bit, so we did that. And now it's still wrong.
Yeah.
well, I'm thinking if you
Yeah,
say
I
to
can't.
Quadrant, send me perfection, give me what Quadrant says is ultimate perfection. The Quadrant sends this to you, says, okay, this is ultimate perfection. So then you would have ultimate perfection, everything's equal, everything's 10%. Then if you needed to move stuff around a little bit on the perfection map, you would have perfection and you could make sure you met that.
Since they don't know our area, we could make those
You know,
the changes that are more specific to our area, or that make
I'm
sense
just-
by our roads and
Yes,
rather than.
that's what I
would
was
be nice is
thinking.
to have them complete a effective map and then meet to review the map with us. So that they have a working knowledge of the map that's good, and then they can be on the Zoom meeting and say, okay, so
They can be
this
working
looks
on the
good,
same
but can we, because they'll have done the work and know what
See,
the
that's
good product
yeah.
is, I guess.
Right.
And then we can review that with them via the Zoom.
And make those micro adjustments if we need
It's
to.
gonna,
And do it.
Okay,
you run the risk of doing it wrong again,
yeah, I don't want to do that.
or
Third
spend,
time.
spend however long it's gonna take them to correct everything.
That's so.
But their math guy isn't even gonna be back in until next week, so
Or
it wouldn't be until after that that we
Yeah,
would get a perfected map.
with the lack of instruction we've been given throughout this entire process, I don't care. I'm ready to just be done with them, and I would encourage 10 years down the road, we don't do this one again, we go a different route. But, yeah, I'm all for just quadrant fix it, give us the map, and then we'll look it over, we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm so curious about these suggestions.
Yeah, I will include that in there.
I know other schools, that's what they got, Rob, was they actually got, they paid for the service. They got 3 suggested maps given to them, and they picked which one was closest to fit them, yeah. That's what other schools got, yeah, I don't know why we didn't get it. I mean, I don't know if they
Did
got
they
it
go
go,
through ISD?
I don't know.
Okay, you don't.
I don't know who they
Let's
went
find
to,
out
but
when
yeah.
And what would be nice is if we sent them obviously they have the map that we came up with. So they can use that as a template and stay as close to that as possible.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Fix this as close to what we have discussed.
Right,
Let them fix the little things.
Right.
And it should be pretty close.
it should be. And when I spoke with Quadrant, I don't know if he spoke in error, but he did say that we were supposed to be sending back the suggestions that we wanted to see with regard to how we wanted the new boundary lines drawn. So that was not what we were told. So
So you can tell them what you want.
Yes,
We'd like it
we
to
could
follow
have
this
said,
road. We'd like it,
split
here's a
yeah.
railway,
Yeah.
railroad,
Yeah.
we'd like it to follow that.
Yeah.
Well, gee, that would have been good information.
yeah, exactly.
Some more, some more guidance and
A
instruction
lot
on what we were
more
supposed
guidance.
to.
Yes,
I mean, 'cause we had to just kind of
figured out.
guess and figure it out.
Yeah, and poor Quadrant, imagine how irritated they are, if we're not the only ones.
Yeah, according to the gentleman at Quadrant, this has happened to several schools. No, not according to Karen, we're the only problem.
Sure,
But
sure we are.
Quadrant said elsewhere.
I think Karen needs to complete her retirement.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other future agenda items?
Okay.
Is there a statutory deadline, or is it just their,
December 10th.
it's their imposed deadline?
Well,
Oh,
no,
statutory, no. Oh, no, I take that back.
there
Yes.
There is a deadline due from the census, from the time.
So
the census
statutory.
date. Yes. However, according to ISBA, we have been granted an extension, which is where we're at right now.
Do we have that in writing?
The, I can't remember, I don't have my notes, with me. The gentleman I spoke to, the Secretary of State, sorry, wrong office, Attorney General's office, said that the deadline was, there was a December 10 deadline, but then it all has to go to the state board, and they have to approve all that, but he was figuring, he didn't seem too worried about it, to say the truth, he was figured that by the time they got to it, was gonna be well into maybe January, but he figured it'd probably be like a February or something. He didn't even think that, because I told him we were, having, what do we have to do? We're having these issues. He always said I would call back. Okay. He didn't
Well,
say
that's
that.
reassuring.
But yeah, that was where the December 10th one came in. That's what
Right, and what I was told by ISBA is that an extension was granted. We actually have until February to get the maps to the State Board of Education. What I'm gathering based on conversations is that ISBA wants to get this completed. And that's why we were initially given the first week of December by ISBA, because they'd like to get to the first meeting, the SBO's first meeting of the new year. So, you know, we would do. Oh, yeah. But, all right. Moving on to entering into executive session. I will entertain a motion regarding entering into the executive session for Idaho Code 742061B.
I will move to go into executive session per Idaho Code 742061B.
Hearing the motion in a second, we need a roll call vote.
Trustee Bain.
Yes.
Trustee Major. Yes. Trustee Chris.
Yes.
Chair Thompson.
Yes.
Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a
great Christmas, family. Merry Christmas. And thank you.
Merry
And happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yes, happy birthday and new marriage.
Yeah.
Button for clinician.
Did you gavel us out?
I didn't clink the clinker.
Okay,
Yes.
yes, I just opened the door.
We are back on.
Okay. Isn't there anybody there?
There's one person, she's joining. Okay, she's back in.
Okay, so we've come out of executive session and I will entertain a motion regarding employee 12092021A.
I move to table the decision regarding employee number 12.09.2021A.
I'll second that.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries, and that concludes tonight's meeting. Tonight's meeting, it's 10:22.
Yes.
Wow,
what a mess.
That was sad earlier when you were scared, Debbie.
I'm scared.
I feel like so sorry for you.